And welcome back to the Luke Deckard Show. I'm your host, Luke Deckard, and with me once again is Jonathan Whitelaw,
Hello,
author
everybody.
extraordinaire.
Oh, thank you. Very kind of you.
How you doing, Jonathan?
I'm okay. Thank you very much. I'm all the better for that lovely introduction. It was
Good.
very kind of you. I'm glad to know that the 10 quid that I sent across the Atlantic has arrived safely and has, with the appropriate message that I'd written on the back of it for you to read out. So, yeah,
Yes.
there we
Yes.
go.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
can
I
I
got
complain
it.
about?
I got it. I got
That's
it.
it. There it is. There it is. Perfect. Lovely.
Yeah. So now it's time. Now it's time for the funeral of the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I think that's probably the loveliest thing that we might talk about tonight, which is doesn't really speak very highly of what we're about to talk about. If praising me is the high point.
Yes. Man. I mean, we've talked Star Wars a good number of times now, at least
We have.
and I've always said that I don't really like new Star Wars. New Star Wars to me just isn't fun. It's
Yeah,
so it's too many member berries. It's all that
yeah,
nonsense.
yeah, yeah,
But I gotta be honest, the first season of The Mandalorian was this breath of fresh air.
yeah. Absolutely.
You know,
Couldn't
I
agree more.
John Favreau is he can tell a good story. He's a good director. He's a good writer when he can be.
Yeah,
And The Mandalorian season 1 had a few little blips, but on the
of
whole, I was
course.
like, this was a really fun show
Yeah,
that didn't lean really heavily on nostalgia bait, prequel stuff,
yeah,
post
yeah,
Jedi.
yeah,
It was very much just its own little thing, a little nice little western, you
yeah.
know, and it was fun. Um, what was your thoughts on series 2?
I was very enthusiastic about season two,
Yeah.
um, and for the most part, I enjoyed it. I
Mm.
did have that sinking feeling about halfway through, three quarters of the way through, going, right, okay, we are getting further and further and further away from
Yes.
what the first series, what made the first series great.
Yes.
Um, and this is the frustrating thing that I've got, and I think we chatted about this when we performed a vivisection on the first three episodes.
Yes.
Was that I get it, right? I get it. I get the pressure. I get the expectation. I get
Mhm.
that it's a TV show amongst a million other TV shows, which is hard enough to keep people's attention. It's hard enough to keep the viewers coming in. It's hard enough to get people's attention because we are swamped. We're literally swamped with multimedia. Add
Mm.
on top of that the triple decker stress sandwich of it being Star Wars, which
Mm.
comes with all of this baggage. I get
Yeah.
it. I get it. But exactly as you say, look, I think they did it. They were able to handle that really, really well in the first series.
Yeah.
They had that originality to it. It was all contained. It was self-contained. You had the aesthetics there that were enough for casual fans to know, okay, there's a stormtrooper. Okay, kind of looks like Boba Fett, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Then you move into the second series, and we're getting further and further and further away with that as plots get more complicated. Obviously, things develop.
Yes.
Um, I liked how the last series ended. I liked the second series. I mean, I loved that. I loved the whole Luke Skywalker thing
Oh, hang on,
and
sir.
that whole inclusion. I liked that. I celebrated that. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all the fallout from it, from the Star Wars fandom, and
Mm.
watching the videos and things of of men, women, everyone my age reacting to something like that.
Yeah.
Younger and older, obviously, as well. And I think that energy that energy feels like it was completely doused out at the beginning of the third series, and I think it was replaced with expectation. And I
Mhm.
feared it when we were watching the first three episodes,
Yeah.
that it was never going to be able to recapture that energy. And unfortunately, now that we're past that,
Yeah.
it didn't.
Yeah.
It really didn't. Not for me anyway. Not for me. If you're any different, then please let me know if people
No.
watching are any different. Because this is the thing, right? This is the thing. We've talked about it. Well, we've been watching it, right? You and I have been having conversations about it as the series comes out and as the episodes air.
Yes.
Um, and my worry has always been with these types of things is that when you have a shared experience with someone who feels exactly the same towards it as you and I do,
Yes.
sometimes you worry that you've missed the point.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I would love to, if someone's in the, if someone's watching tonight, or anyone really at any
Yeah.
point says, well, actually, do you know what? This is what I enjoyed about it. This is what I like. I would love that to happen, because I was so disappointed,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was disappointing. You know,
Definitely. There is that. I kind of relate to that because, like, I do get when something comes out, like a new Star Wars movie. I vividly remember seeing The Force Awakens. I walked out of the movie and I was like, that was really boring.
yeah,
I've seen all of that before. I can't believe that after 40 years, the next Star
yeah,
Wars movie is just a badly
yeah,
repurposed New Hope, which everyone clocked that right away.
yeah, yeah,
Some
yeah,
people loved it. Some people said that's exactly what it needed to be, and I was like,
yeah.
no,
Of
it
course,
didn't. Like, it really didn't.
yeah,
But I also can relate to that whole idea of like, well, am I in the wrong? Am I the
yeah,
fool here? Am I the
of
one
course,
who's like, being too mean or harsh or
yeah,
snotty or what?
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
I kind of the way I look at it is when it comes to storytelling, what I don't like is I don't like the comments where people are just like, "Oh, I just want mindless entertainment." Because I
yeah,
don't things shouldn't it should not be mindless,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Um
yeah, yeah, yeah.
whether you're watching something like like Friends or The Office, or I don't know, Apocalypse Now, or
Yep,
something,
yeah.
something highbrow. What's a highbrow thing? I can't think at the moment. Schindler's
Oh,
List.
I'm far too lowbrow to know what highbrow things are.
We'll go with Schindler's List.
Go
Something
for
like
Schindler's List. Yeah, that's
you
pretty
know,
highbrow. Yeah,
yeah, something where okay, whatever. You got to think a little bit, but like no matter what level of entertainment it is, it shouldn't be. It should never be mindless.
no, 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 no. And importantly, I think it's important to remember that nothing's ever made mindlessly. It's that sort of catch-all term for mindless
What about
TV.
Sharknado?
Are we still talking about highbrow or lowbrow here? What we talking about here?
Okay, yeah. It's the
Right,
spectrum.
the thing is, right, you look at credits. You look at
Yeah.
the credits of any movie, and you see the amount of people that are involved in it. And I'm a firm believer, call me naive, call me whatever.
Mm.
I'm a firm believer that no writer, no actor, no best boy, no gaffer, no director, whatever, ever sets out to make something bad.
I disagree.
And there's no doubt we will be flooded with comments of things like, David Bowie making terrible albums towards the end of his contract, and then and
Mhm.
Van Morrison doing the same deliberately and all that. I get that, I understand it, but they're still well done, whether it's bad for them or what have you. It's still well done in a sense. And and you're right. You're absolutely right with the sequel trilogy. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed The Force Awakens when I first watched it. But you're absolutely
Mm.
right, and it's no big secret to say that it drew far too much on its own lore,
Yes.
whereas A New Hope drew on lore from 500 years of storytelling, and had all these outside influences retold a different way, as opposed to being retold the same way, right?
Yes.
But I think with The Mandalorian, the problem that I've had with this series is, and we've talked about this before, I didn't feel this after the first 3 episodes, but I certainly felt it in the subsequent episodes towards the end, in the finale and what have you. It
Mm.
feels like the people that are involved in it behind the scenes, Disney, whoever, they've had their run with it now.
Yeah.
It felt almost like an inconvenience for me.
Yeah.
It felt like this show's an inconvenience because we've got lots of other things that we want to be doing now, and let's just use it as a vehicle to try and introduce those things. So
Yes.
the finale is a great example, right? The finale of
Yes.
the third series is a great example.
Let's not
That
jump to the finale yet, though. Well,
all right,
let's
okay, right,
yeah,
right, right.
yeah.
Okay.
Because there's other things to pick on. But actually, back to your point about actors and writers going in and doing something that they don't go into the intention that it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
The reason I disagree with that is because, well, I think there's an interview with Eddie Murphy about Beverly Hills Cop 2 or 3. I think it's 3,
Yeah.
where he
With
didn't
George
want
Lucas.
to do it.
George Lucas has got a cameo in that one.
Does he?
He
Never seen it.
does. He
I've
does.
never
Yeah.
seen it. But in this interview, he's like, I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I had no intention of coming back, and they kept asking, kept hounding, da, 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 da. And then he goes, eventually they just threw enough money at me that I was like, fine, I'll do it. But he's like, he didn't like, I believe he didn't like the script.
Yeah.
So he wasn't really invested. He was literally just there for a paycheck.
Yeah.
And I have heard from other actor friends of mine that they do recognize sometimes when they're on a show or a set of some kind, and they're like, well, you kind of have an idea when something isn't going to be very good. There's a general kind of people know. It's just that the way it's, they just don't go bad mouthing it to the press,
Of
um
course.
and I sort of always think of what's the main girl from Game of Thrones, when in that really awkward interview when season 8 came out, and she was like, best season ever. um
Yeah.
you know
I can't remember.
Amelia
I know who
Clark,
you. I know who you're
Amelia
talking about.
Clark, Amelia
Yeah.
Clark.
Yeah.
So I
Another Star Wars veteran.
another from from one of the worst Star Wars movies, which is such a
Solo.
shame.
Yeah.
She's a
Solo.
good actor, so it's like that's a shame that
She
she's
is.
in
She,
a
she
dreadful
was
movie.
Sarah Connor as well. She's in the Terminator franchise. She was
Oh,
and she's soon to be in Marvel as well, isn't she? I think she's in. Is it Secret War? This Secret Wars?
I
Is that
think
the
she
new
is in
series? I think
Secret.
she's in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think she is in Secret Wars. Okay, so Mandalorian, we did the first 2 episodes. I think the first 2, maybe 3 of season 1, season 3. The third, chapter 19, the convert, is this.
Yeah.
Episodes 1 and 2 were so stupid, so pointless,
Yeah.
that I was shocked. They set up this whole Mandalorian needs to go bathe in the waters under the goddamn civic center, which is so stupid.
Yep.
You know what? I took it. I forgot to send you this. I was walking in town the other day, and there was a sign that said Civic Center that way, and I meant to send that to you. I was like, oh, I gotta take a picture and send it to Jonathan, but then I forgot. Just reminded myself now.
That's
And I was
okay.
like,
You're forgiven. This is the way.
like maybe there's some holy waters under the Civic Center in the town where I
Possibly.
live.
Possibly. I mean, anything's possible, right?
But
Anything with a giant space elephant underneath it. But
yeah, what's the thing? Like, so these first 2 episodes set up this thing, and they very quickly get that out of the way. So you're like, whoa, okay. And then it's like, okay, well, I guess they're gonna retake Mandalore. But then there's that really strange scene of Bo-Katan looking at the monster underwater, and you think,
Yep.
is that gonna come back to play at
Yep.
any point?
Yeah.
And so these it's everything, and he really needs IG-11 for some reason.
Yep.
And then that doesn't ever
That's dropped. Yep.
totally dropped. And then the weird payoff for it at the end is like Power Rangers mecha stupidity.
Yep.
With Grogu. But we'll get to that. So that's kind of the setup for the first 2 episodes that blew my mind with stupidity. But then we get to this third episode where there's that. I think maybe we did do the first 3 episodes, maybe, because then they kind of fly around. There's the fight at the very beginning with some Imperial ships, some TIE fighters. Yes. And that scene was like, what I've realized is that anytime there's just mindless action that looks cool, the audience on Twitter are like, oh, this is really good, because it's the only good thing in the episode.
Yep.
And they're latching onto that because everyone's like, oh, those bits were really great. I was like, yeah, they were fine, but like, what did it accomplish?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
think you're right. In fact, I think again, you and I have spoken privately about this. Is that I was exactly the same. I was exactly the same. What's bothered me about this series in particular is that I've become very, very wary when I see these things now. Anytime you see something good, you kind of feel with this series that that's it.
Yeah.
Because there's an almost. This is what I mean. This is what I was talking about with the kind of sense of the show's ran its course in terms of the eyes of the developers.
Yes.
And I know that Jon Favreau's already said this week or last week that he's already written the 4th series, and I'm like, really?
He has, yes.
Really? It's like, have you not, like, well, if you've written the 4th series, why didn't you make this one better? Because it's clearly just been set up entirely for other projects that people are more interested in being in and doing it. And it's such a shame. It's such a shame because it was at one point. It certainly doesn't feel that way now, but it was at one point the thing to watch on TV.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It built that up nicely. The hype towards the 2nd series was huge. And then you got the Book of Boba Fett, and that wasn't as great.
Mm.
And then this, it's just, I mean, yeah, that's my biggest gripe with it has been that, yeah, it just feels like we're going through the motions with it,
Yeah.
really going through the motions with it, and like there's just very very little coherence from one episode to the other, and written in a way that I wasn't interested. I was bored.
No.
I
Yes.
was bored.
Well, I mean, back to the Coruscant episode. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking I'm watching these shows with my writer brain on,
Yep.
and I'm thinking, what what the fuck is going on? Like, why are we here with little pathetic Doctor Man who was in like half a minute of the
Yeah,
Mandalorian
yeah,
season
yeah, yeah, yeah.
one,
Yeah.
and I mean, he's really only there to like validate
Yeah.
the Snoke clones in the sequel
Yep.
trilogy.
Yep.
Why did
Yeah.
the his that I can't remember the girl's name who sort of befriended him in that episode, who was a former
In,
Imperial person.
yeah.
She's a completely a non-character.
Absolutely.
The show didn't make us care about her, so I don't care that I don't even remember her name. But
Exactly.
like, why did she like do that mind erasing thing, and why did that not set up or pay off anything?
The thing is, right, with that episode in particular, it kind of gets my heckles up as a writer because I
Mhm.
think it's all well and good setting something up and not giving the audience the payoff that series, right? But if you're not going to pay off that series in the next 6 episodes or the next 5, 6 episodes, then you've got to make the audience and the viewers care enough that they will hold on for another series, or indeed 2 series or 3 series or what have you, until
Yeah,
they resolve that. Now, Game of Thrones, early Game of Thrones was perfect for that because that
yeah,
was 20 odd episodes, right? And you would
yes.
have things that would start a quarter of the way through and then would be resolved by the season
But they
finale.
don't just dump characters. That's the problem.
Exactly. And that's the issue. That's the
Yeah.
issue. So for all we know, Dr. Pershing is going to come back in the 4th series, or he's going to come back in the 5th series or the 10th series or what have you.
Yes.
But quite frankly,
Do we care?
why so what?
Yeah.
So what? Because I was like that this
Yeah.
time around. I
Yeah.
was like that this time around when he reappeared in that 3rd episode. I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's him, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not like, oh, here he is.
Yeah.
Oh, what's this going to be now? What's what's the what thread's this going to open up?
Yeah.
Um, and that's frustrating. That's very very frustrating because as we've talked about before,
Mm.
there is such a stress on people's time
Yes.
to watch good things, to watch great things, and I kind of feel with the Mandalorian season 3 that goodwill has been stretched to its absolute limit because it is Star Wars and it will always be watched, certainly always be watched in my house. But I
Mm.
felt very, very tested and
Mm.
tetchy with it because it feels like there's that self-awareness that it's like, well, of course you're going to watch it.
See, for me, I think the band has snapped.
Yeah,
The Star Wars rubber band has been,
yeah,
it I want to say it snapped with the sequel trilogy, and
yeah,
someone heated it up and repaired the band
yeah,
somehow.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, this is the last, but it's just like, or maybe the band didn't snap entirely, maybe it's just hung by one little fiber, right?
yeah. Right.
And Mandalorian is that fiber. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
season
yeah,
2 happened, and that fiber starts to shake a bit more.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then season 3, I think, is the snapping point where I mean, if season 4 comes out, if and when it comes out, I guess it will come out. But when it comes out, the chances of me wanting to sit here and do a show on it in a way that's like taking the show seriously and
yeah,
not just wanting to do it just to dog on it
yeah,
is, I mean, I don't see myself coming back to the Mandalorian for a serious watch. I would come back
yeah,
to be like, what the I
yeah.
don't
What
know
now?
if it can return to its former
Yeah,
self.
yeah.
Because
And that,
there are things out there that people have said, that people in charge have said, that have already been like massive red flags now.
yeah.
Which will
I mean,
we'll mention it now, but it's the fact that it's the producers confirmed that Din Djarin is not
the
the
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian. And I'm like,
Yeah, Yeah.
Like, what do you think about that? This is a show that started with The
Yeah,
Mandalorian, the game a stupid name some way somewhere down the line, but
yeah,
now we're being told into season 3, this character who we've enjoyed and loved his relationship with the cub that he's found with
yeah,
Grogu.
yep,
We're now being told, hey, by the way, that's not the main character anymore.
yep,
What the fuck?
yeah. Um, I don't know. I don't know if that was a sort of hastily put together reaction.
Mm,
I don't know if that was something that's happened from the higher ups where they've gone, let's try and salvage some of this. Let's try and say, actually, do you know what? It's an ensemble piece now. It's an ensemble cast now. It started out as something because evolution. That's one of those buzzwords that TV execs love to
mm,
band around. They always have done. The evolution of a show, the evolution of
yeah,
a character.
yeah.
Um, for me, it didn't. I know that we'll get on to the finale in a bit more depth. For me, that didn't tie up with what happens at the end of the series.
No,
In
not at
fact,
all.
it's the opposite. It's literally the opposite of what happens at the end of the series and how they set things up
It
after
is.
series 3. It's
Yeah.
literally the opposite of that.
Yes.
And I don't know. It felt. I mean, yeah. I completely agree with you. I think you're absolutely right with the whole the last thread, the last part of the band that was holding it together.
Mm,
I saw a fantastic meme the other day there.
yeah.
It might have been you actually that shared it, but it's Din Djarin holding the dark saber, going, "Why is it so heavy?" And it's the second panel that is saying, "Because you have the weight of the franchise on your shoulders," that's it for me. And look, you're absolutely right with that for me.
Yes.
And this is another thing, and again, we've talked about it as well. Nobody's perfect, right? Nobody's
No.
perfect. We're not sitting here trying to say that the people that run Star Wars and the people that run The Mandalorian are perfect, and this is a massive shocker.
Yeah.
We have 100 years of television and 100 years of televisual history that dictates that at some point a show is going to reach its saturation point. At some
Yes.
point, it's going to reach its fatigue point with the audience. At some point, it's going to jump the shark, right?
Yeah.
Now you hope that in the age that we live in and the expectations that audiences have, that can maybe go on a lot longer than 3 series. I mean, how many episodes is it? Is it 3? Is it 30 episodes? It's less than 30 episodes. And
It's like 8 episodes per season.
so you made a very good point, Luke, in the last time that we were talking about this about Next Generation. And
Mm,
I want to raise a point about that as well,
mm.
because I've spent the past month watching The Mandalorian. God bless me, trying to come up with excuses for it, and I can't. I can't do it any longer. I don't have the
No.
strength. But I'll come back to the Next Generation in a second. But you look at the Next Generation when that ran from the mid-80s to the early 90s, and it's 20 odd episodes a season. It's 8 series, 9 series, whatever it is. You'll know better than I am, and
Mm,
that's weekly television for months. Weekly television for months, and
yes.
it's not all great. Obviously, it's not all great. It's not all the super high caliber and quality, as is every show, right? Game of Thrones is
Yeah.
another example. I don't think there's any. It's no coincidence for me that the less episodes you got in the series of Game of Thrones, the poorer quality the show became. From
Yes.
what, season 5 onwards or something like that.
Yes.
You
Yes.
just kind of hope that something with like the Mandalorian that started out so well and continued to do so. Now we're sitting with under 30 episodes of it as a body of work,
Yes.
and we're out. We're done. We're done. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know what. So it's Next Generation, great example.
Yes.
Game of Thrones, great example. 30 odd episodes in, you're only a quarter of the way through the second series.
Well, not even. I mean, yeah, maybe a quarter. I mean, if you think about back in the day, Next Generation, a lot of the 90s, 80s television shows had 26 episodes a season.
Yeah.
26.
Yeah.
That
26
is
weeks.
that is a lot. That is
It
a
is a
lot.
lot.
And
It
then when
is.
you think streaming has condensed TV shows into 8 to 10 hour long cinematic experiences as opposed to the episodic stuff. It's like,
Yep.
okay, well that's all fine and good.
Yep.
But that means that, okay, you're writing 10 episodes. You're not writing 30 episodes.
Yep.
And you're not filming them at a incredible rate either.
Yep.
So why are you not taking the time to tell good stories?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
this is what I can't, for the life of me, when it comes to The Mandalorian, I can't work out what's going on with this season. If you look at episodes 1, 2, and 3, it's the narrative thrust. It's like the first season was a mostly well constructed arc, and that
Yep.
is he has to go collect the asset, which ends up being Grogu, and then he spends the rest of the time trying to find out, not handing him over to the bad guys, and trying to find out what they want from him all
Exactly.
along the way, getting into some other little
Great story.
adventures.
Great
Right?
story.
It made sense. It was well handled, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Whereas this, the season starts and you're like, oh, it's like, oh well, he needs to bathe in the waters. Okay, so that must be the season arc. He's gonna
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
go from that. That's the end point, and there's
Yep.
gonna be a lot of trials and tribulations along
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Done in the first episode, you're like,
Yep.
what? And then it's like episode 2, it's like, oh no, the season arc is going to be, we're going to retake Mandalore, but here's some pirates and here's some
Yep.
Moff Gideon stuff
Yep.
and blah 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 blah, and you're like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
okay. And then episode 3 comes, and you don't even spend like 10 minutes with the Mandalorian. You're
Yeah.
with Dr. McGlasses,
Yep.
and you're like, why am I watching these
Yeah.
ex stormtroopers,
Yeah.
ex Imperial officers
Yep.
in their rehabilitation units? What the flip does this have to do with anything?
Well, what
What is the writers' room thinking? Like, what are they? How are they? I'm like, writers' room. Like, have all this the boards up. They got all this stuff tracking it.
Yeah.
How are they looking in this and saying, yeah, this tracks?
Well, I mean, the worrying thing that I've got with something like that is, if these are the 8 episodes we got, what were the ones that they rejected? What was the caliber of those? What was the arc that we didn't get? What had to be sidelined to tell this particular story, or indeed not tell a particular story? That's what worries me.
Yes,
I think the Imperial stuff for the 3rd episode, I thought was interesting, because one of the big things that I really enjoyed about Andor as a series was that it reminded me of all the expanded universe stuff. And I think we've talked about this before, actually.
Yeah.
The expanded universe was aimed at a much older audience than say the movies. Certainly, your Return of the Jedi,
it was more mature. It was more mature.
Of course it was. It was aimed at the audience it was aimed at the 10-year-old in 1982 who went to see 83, who went to see Return of the Jedi, who was now 20, or 18 or what have you, because it was the mid-90s and time had progressed.
Yeah.
And that was fine. That was okay. It was allowed to do that. That was very, very popular in the 90s. It was hugely popular. Doctor Who did exactly the same. Doctor Who did exactly, and did some fantastic work with the Virgin New Adventures and then Missing Adventures, but very, very different to the TV and the movie properties. And that's what I really liked about Andor, was because it kind of took a much more serious. One of my favorite Marvel movies. There aren't many. But one of my favorite Marvel movies actually is The Winter Soldier, because you can sit and watch it and just see it through the lens of a political thriller. It doesn't, the fact that it's got, robots and all the rest of it, that's fine.
Yes.
But you can sit and enjoy it the same way that you sit and watch Clear and Present Danger or Patriot Games, or or spy games, stuff like that. That's fine.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed Andor. Don't get me wrong, it was very, very flawed. There were times where I was bored stiff, but when it did it well, it really harkened back to that stuff, which I can resonate with. And I thought with the 3rd episode of the Mandalorian, okay, maybe that's the way they want to take it. Maybe they've seen the reaction of Andor. Maybe they want to go down this route, but we don't set foot on that planet ever again.
But here's the thing, Andor, these would have been written and filmed around the same time.
Of course, yeah.
So they wouldn't have had that Andor reaction to repurpose stuff from, actually.
Yeah, of course.
So this is again where it's bizarre to me that they even wrote this 3rd series in this way.
Yeah. I have this theory. I have this theory that I think with all the other shows that are coming out this year, so I think it's Ahsoka comes out this year. I think there's maybe another one later on this year.
So
I think you'll find a very, very, very different energy to these shows, and I think a lot of that is because
you say different energy. What do you mean by different energy?
I mean approach to it in terms of the storytelling. I mean, because the thing is, you can't. Can we criticize the acting in The Mandalorian? Can we criticize the direction?
Yes, we can.
Can we?
Lizzo?
Give me an example then.
Lizzo? Can't
Oh
act
yeah.
for shit.
Do you know something? I actually completely forgot about that episode. Jack
Yeah,
Black,
okay.
Christopher Lloyd.
Christopher
Yeah,
Lloyd
I
is a
completely.
brilliant
Yeah.
actor.
Sorry, I respectfully retract my statement. Then but that's the problem, Luke. That's the problem that we've got here. Is there's only 8 episodes. There's
Mm,
only 8 episodes. How could I have forgotten that? It's not like, oh, that was episode 16 of a 26 episode run.
yeah.
It's filler in an 8 episode series. How does that work?
Yes.
How can
Well,
that
the
be? How can that be
Coruscant
rubber stamp?
episode, yeah, the Coruscant episode is filler. The
Yep.
next episode, which is the Foundling, is filler, which is the one where
What's
the
that one
kids.
again?
That one is the one where the Mandalorian, the Mandalorian and Bo-Katan go back to where the Mandalorians are based. Right? They have, instead
Oh,
of fighting the sea
with
creature,
the
they have to
giant
fight the
eagle.
pterodactyl.
Got
Yeah.
it. Yep.
That's another totally pointless episode where we get this stupid flashback with Grogu. And this is I've mentioned this so many times.
Yes.
I hate it. Makes no sense that Grogu was at the Jedi Temple when
Yep.
Anakin was there,
Yep.
because
They're the
he's
same age.
yeah, it makes no sense. He's an infant. He's literally meant to be like a 1-year-old, maybe a
Yeah.
2-year-old. He can't
Yeah.
talk. He can't do anything until
Yeah.
the show magically makes him do things.
Yep.
But it's like, okay, that if
Which is also inconsistent. It's inconsistent what he's capable of doing and what he's not capable of doing.
yes, right. So it's like, okay, well, he's been an infant for 50 years.
Yeah.
So why would an infant be at the Jedi Temple?
Yeah. Why? Because you see the younglings in Revenge of the Sith, but they're all 6 years old, 8 years old.
Mm,
In order for him to be, he's literally just been born.
yes.
Round about that, as in the sort of like cognitive capacity of him would be that he's literally just been born, because if 50 years are down the line and that's what he's like now,
Yes.
as we know him, he's got to be, he's barely out of being embryonic, right?
Yeah. What did
It's a mess.
What did you think of Baby Yoda this season in general?
See, having him jumping around and all that doesn't work for me.
That was bad, right?
But then again, it was on, actually, there was a marathon here on AMC, I think it was, of all so over the Easter weekend, you had like 1, 2, 3, then you had Rogue One, Solo, A New Hope, and then A New Hope, Empire Strikes, blah, 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 across the Easter weekend. And that was fine. So, it's running all the time. So you're dropping in and out of it. And I happened to drop into the Darth Sidious Yoda matchup at the end of Revenge of the Sith. And I remember sitting watching it in the cinema going, this isn't going to work. This isn't working for me.
Yeah, no.
And it's not 20 years later. It still doesn't work. The visuals of it don't work. Yoda is so high and he's meant to be fighting a fully grown man, and the visuals just don't work, right? So don't have it. And I get exactly the same feeling when I watch Grogu being involved in it. I don't mind him wandering around. I don't mind him being in the pod and all the rest of it. That's fine. But don't every time. Again, I think I saw this on Twitter last night or last week, maybe, can't remember.
Yeah.
But it looks, every time you have him do a force jump, it looks like the staff have just literally thrown the puppet in the air. Yeah. And it just doesn't work, right?
Yes.
See, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You've got plenty of other opportunities for action sequences. You've got fit people, younger people. You don't need to be chucking this bit of rubber around, right?
No.
It's not. It does not work.
It's like George Lucas had the brain power to realize that in Empire Strikes Back, though I know he didn't direct it, that you don't do stupid stunts with Yoda.
Absolutely.
Yoda's thing was that, yes, he was a puppet, but he was this old little guy who just kind of walking around. And then his big force power was that he doesn't need to do all the big jumps or anything like that. But he can lift the ship out of the water.
That's the whole thing, right? That's the whole line, is that, judge me by my size. That's the whole line.
How are they missing this?
That's the whole line. The movie's been watched by a gazillion people. It's one of the highest ranked movies. It's in the IMDb top 250. It's endeared by generations. But it all gets thrown out the window because you're going to have him running around the lights, fighting Praetorian guards.
And arguably, the prequels ruined that, because the prequels had to have fighting Yoda.
Absolutely.
When it's like,
well, they didn't have to have him, but they chose to have him.
Yes. Chose.
Part of the litany of disasters that we are, unfortunately, still dealing with 20 odd years later.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we got it with the Coruscant episode where
Yep.
we have the battle droids and all
Yep.
that nonsense. Then we get it with the Lizzo episode
Yep.
where they're like, we're just getting more prequel droids shoved in our
Yeah.
faces.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
Those
like,
voices. That battle droid voice. Yep.
yeah, I'm like,
Had
who
enough. We
who
had enough.
wants this? Also, the other thing is baffling to me is you could sort of accept that there were all these different kinds of robots back then and during prequel era.
Yep.
Those things did not exist in the original trilogy.
No.
Why are
No.
there suddenly heaps and heaps and
Loads and loads of
heaps
them.
of
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
everywhere
Yeah.
in a post Return of the Jedi world?
Well, I mean, and the thing is, right? The thing also is, and I may be corrected. I'm sure someone will correct me if I am wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. How many re-editions have we had of the original trilogy where they've added extra bits in and tried to tie things up? One of the things that pops into my head immediately is that those floating probe droids that Darth Maul has in Episode 1. One of those was added into A New Hope, floating around Mos
Yeah.
Eisley.
Yeah.
Why have they not been added in? Why is now the time to, exactly as you say, have hundreds and hundreds of these battle droids when we've not had any of those added into any reissue of the original trilogy subsequently? But I think it's because, and we've talked about this before, is that there's an apologetic agenda towards the prequel trilogy that is now being pushed down people's throats. And unfortunately, The Mandalorian has been chosen as the platform in which to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's completely unnecessary, right? It's
Yeah.
completely unnecessary. And exactly as you say, who wants that callback to the prequels? Who really, really wanted to see more battle droids and super battle droids? I know I didn't.
Is it because that Disney and everyone involved with Star Wars, is it that they don't really know how to tell any stories outside of Star Wars? Was season 1 of The Mandalorian a complete just fluke? Because season 2 is as okay as it is,
Yeah,
it leans
but
heavily into prequel nostalgia.
it does. It does.
Heavily.
It does. Yeah, it
And
does.
just general Star Wars
And the animated
nostalgia.
stuff as well, obviously, the
Yeah.
inclusion of Ahsoka and what have you.
Yeah.
And again, that's similar in this series too. In fact,
Yeah.
a lot more so in this series.
Yeah.
I think so. I think again, we mentioned this in the first 2 episodes show that we did.
Yeah.
That super protected. It's super protected as a property, right? I get that. It's it's up there with James Bond, Star Trek, Harry Potter. These multimedia, multi-trillion-dollar turnover franchises are so protected that you're going through. It goes right to the top of the studios. Goes every decision that's made, every casting decision, writing decision, every fart's end goes right to the top when it comes to what's been done and what's been spoken about.
Yes.
Now, you can't please everyone. Obviously, you can't please everyone. And actually, there's an argument to be made that the more committees that are involved, the less people you're gonna please.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
I kind of feel that. Yep, there they are.
We'll bring that back in a bit.
Thanks for that. I kind of feel that. I think you're right, and I think there was maybe a degree of panic. Maybe a degree of panic when it comes to the top brass, the people in the corridors of power at Disney, saying, right, okay, that's Star Wars, fantastic, right? Do you know what? It's doing really, really well. Let's, this is how we want to push it. This is the agenda that we want to push within the narrative of the show. And look, we don't know, right? We don't know what the conversations are like with Favreau and Filoni and the rest of the board. These guys might be fighting tooth and nail to tell the show that they started out telling, and it's just been completely. Look, there's plenty of public knowledge and there's plenty of precedent within the Star Wars universe of directors and producers and writers and all the rest of it falling out with Disney.
Yes.
And leaving projects. Happened with Solo. It happened with both the. It certainly happened with the Rise of Skywalker. Was it James Mangold was meant to be directing
Colin Trevorrow, who did the Jurassic World movies.
That was it, and he left, and they got J.J. Abrams back, and fine. That's okay. There's a lot of money at stake, right? I get that. I completely understand that. I completely understand it's a business. Totally.
But the first season of The Mandalorian was perfect as is.
Yeah.
Why did they think that they needed to go in and rejig it to the point to where by season 3 we're now being told, hey, this character that started the show and you love so much
Yep.
actually isn't the main character?
Yeah, it's bonkers.
That's what doesn't add up. It's like I
It's
don't.
absolutely bonkers. You would think that the sure thing to do is, if you've got a success on your hands, which they had,
They had,
a
yeah.
massive success on their hands, not
Yeah.
just, and I should point out that it wasn't just a critical and commercial, it wasn't just a commercial success, it was a critical success.
Yeah.
It was also a massive success with the fandom,
Yeah.
a huge success with the fandom, myself included.
Yes.
And you think, well, you've done it. You've got it right.
Yes.
Don't reinvent the wheel if it doesn't have to be reinvented. And it
No.
really didn't need reinvented, I beg your pardon. It really didn't need reinvented.
Yeah.
And it's bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers to think that when we started out, and again, we had this conversation not that long ago when I caught the first episode of The Mandalorian on TV. And I was hooked. I was completely hooked.
Same.
Even though I've seen it before, I couldn't turn it off. I couldn't switch it off because it
Yes.
looked great. It played out well. It was written fantastically. And to think that where we are now, to think that where we are on the 27th of April with what we've just witnessed over the last 2 months.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And what's really bizarre to me is like if you go back and you look at that first episode, the first introduction to The Mandalorian.
Yep.
That really good bar scene where he kicks ass.
Yep.
And takes his bounty and goes. And then you jump forward into season 2 and about a lot in season 3.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian is getting his ass handed to him
constantly,
all the time.
Constantly.
And he's always having to be saved by Bo-Katan.
Yeah.
Now there will be sections of the fandom and of the YouTube verse and podcast verse where they're gonna that's going to go overboard with this. But I do think that you do have to wonder, why is it that he's always being saved by the lady?
One thing that I got, particularly in the last couple of episodes of the third series, was that Moff Gideon has these new stormtroopers who are wearing Beskar armor, and they look like Mandalorians and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Now, we got told, we were visually shown at the end of the penultimate episode how badass these guys are, because 3 of them have taken down Jin Darin and the other ones were given chase. And yet we then go on to the next episode, the last episode, and they're dropping like flies.
Yep.
They're dropping like flies, right?
Yep.
And again, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That was the only thing. That was the thing about stormtroopers, right? In the original trilogy and what have you. You knew they were just expendable. Nobody ever tried to make out that these guys were crack troops. Far from it. They were just meat for the grinder.
Yeah.
Now you're now trussing them up in an armor that you've told us is impenetrable to X, Y, and Z. And like I said, they were quite literally dropping like flies in the last couple of episodes.
Yeah.
So again, where does it end, and what happens?
Yeah.
I definitely feel that there was the agenda was moving towards the Mandalorian is no longer Jin Darin and it is Bo-Katan. And that's fine. Obviously that's fine, because she's a character.
Is it fine though? Is it actually fine?
It's fine if you do it correctly. It's fine if that's what you set out to do. I don't think making a character the lead character by weakening another one is the right way to go. I don't.
No.
This isn't professional wrestling. It's that's not that's
no. Those have better plots.
That's not how that. There are acres and acres of TV and movies where you can switch focus on characters to make them to be the focus, the main focus.
Yeah.
Without, for want of a better expression, shitting on another one. And that's the challenge, right? You're a writer, I'm a writer. That's the challenge that you face as a writer, is that you do it in a way that.
But when you're serious, so the thing is, Mandalorian is different to, say, Star Trek Next Generation or Deep Space Nine, which is an ensemble cast. Yep. So you will have your Benjamin Sisko episodes, you will have your Kira episodes, you will have your Dax episodes, your Worf episodes, your Quark episodes, right?
Yep.
That's built into the DNA of the show when they come out. Mandalorian was guy and his pet,
Yeah.
sort of. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was an ensemble in that you can, you know, it's meant to hand the mantle of the show over to another person
Yeah.
entirely.
Yeah.
And this is where I have the biggest problem. Is it's not that they've brought in a new character who's a cool, interesting character, and some episodes center on them.
Yep.
That's absolutely fine and can be done. But this episode was very these last couple of seasons have pivoted the lead protagonist to a secondary, almost third rank character
Yep.
that just it makes me
Well,
feel uneasy. It makes me
well,
feel uneasy.
let's look at the statistics, right? Let's look at a statistical point of view. You think about how often Bo-Katan was in the second series.
Mm.
One episode, is it? Maybe two, one or two
One or
episodes.
two. Yeah.
Big, big fanfare when is it Katie Sackhoff, I think
Yes.
is the actress. Now she voiced Bo-Katan in the Clone Wars and
Okay.
all of that and Rebels and stuff like that. So the character has prestige,
Yeah.
the character has prestige within the universe of the show, right?
Yes.
Which is fine. You then go from that to the end of the third episode, the end of the last episode of season 3, and you're right, it's equal billing. If not switched billing, actually, exactly. See, now that's, to me, that's not bleeding somebody in. That's not going about laying the foundations for this big change to happen. This is Deus Ex Machina. This is you getting told as the audience.
Yes.
Everything that you've watched for the last 16 episodes was all right, but that's done now.
Yeah.
And again, it just completely takes you out the show. It takes you out of it.
Even on like a heroic level, this also irks me a little bit, because this annoying episode where they're running their, oops, I didn't mean to take that away. How dare I?
How dare you?
How dare I?
How dare you?
I know, right? This episode where they have been asked to get rid of the robots because they're taking over the place, and there's that big running chase scene, and again, Din Djarin keeps not getting the target. There's a moment where you think, oh wow, we're finally gonna see him do something heroic. When he's wrestling the robot. And then who comes in and saves the day? Well, then Bo-Katan comes in and stops the robot eventually. And I'm like, can you just give the lead one heroic moment in his own show? I don't care what the producers are saying, but think about that first scene in the first episode where you're like, that is a dude, like bounty hunter, kick-ass guy. Yes. Now he can't even catch a robot.
Yeah, it's the weakening of one to support another.
Yes.
Or sorry, not support another, but bolster another. And I don't think that needs to be done.
No.
I think it's really, really bad writing, quite frankly.
Yes.
I think it's really, really bad writing to do something like that, because I think it's disrespectful to the audience. Certainly disrespectful to the character. It's certainly disrespectful to the character, but I think it's disrespectful to the audience, because you think, right, okay, well, I mean, I've built up a trust with this character to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Now you're telling me that he's incapable of doing X, Y, and possibly Z as well. Yes. So what do you want me to do here? Where am I? Who are you, and what's your game? That you're now questioning a character that it's taken 3-4 years worth of support to build up, and going, well, everything that you've thought about that doesn't, I mean, for want of a better expression, right? It's Dallas Bobby Ewing coming out of the shower at the end of the series to go, actually, do you know what? All those 20 odd episodes you've spent the last 6 months watching, it was all a dream, and we're just going to do something else.
Yes.
I'll be honest, I thought we'd moved past that. That's 30, 40 years old, that episode of Dallas. I thought we'd moved past that. I certainly thought that we'd moved past that when it comes to prestige television, when it comes to prestige shows. And again, as I said, this isn't thrown together. This isn't cobbled together by people that don't know what they're doing. This has gone right to the top of one of the biggest, if not the biggest, multimedia corporation on the planet.
Yes. So Psycho in the chat says, why is everyone hating on Mandalorian season 3? The finale ain't that bad. I mean, I'm assuming so. You probably just joined. Hello, thank you for listening and hanging out with this. This no, the follow up is I guess we can never be happy no matter what. This
That's
isn't
true.
about this there is what I do agree that there is a there's a tendency for certain big franchises, Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel, stuff like that, for people to go in hot hating something right off
Yeah.
the bat.
Yeah.
I have been guilty of it many
Yep.
times
Absolutely.
with things, but when things are done well, like season 3 of Star Trek Picard, I am all in. I am
Yeah.
all in. I was all in with the Mandalorian at the beginning. I loved season 1. Season 2 was a dip for me, but had
Yeah.
some good moments.
Yep.
But the problem with season 3, as we've been talking about, and this is coming because if you don't know, Jonathan and I are both writers, so we come at this from a writing perspective where storytelling 101 stuff is being broken every single episode. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
you don't really have a consistent beginning, middle, and end. You don't have a consistent hero's journey. You have no sense of season 3 of The Mandalorian was weird to me because the others had kind of well-to-do season arcs. The season arc, The Mandalorian was trying to be episodic and also a season
Yeah.
narrative, and it was just
What was
stepping
it?
on its toes all the time.
What was the arc?
Yeah,
What was the arc? You know,
yeah. It's like
what?
you have the episode where they go to the planet where Lizzo and Jack Black are, and the main takeaway from that episode is that she needs to go to this planet to speak to Bo-Katan needs to speak to her former Mandalorian crew,
Yep.
and we literally just get sidetracked for 30,
For a
40
whole episode.
minutes
Yeah.
just because we need something else to happen
Yeah.
that has no bearing on the plot. And it's like, actually, could you not have spent that time like having the Mandalorians have their own internal conflict?
Yeah. Well,
Like,
I mean, the thing was, it still culminated in a duel, right, between
yeah,
Bo-Katan and the character's name escapes me. We
yes,
still had to
the
have
guy.
that conflict happen.
Yeah,
Why couldn't that have been the focus of the episode?
it
That's
could
the
have been.
same episode. That fight is the same episode as the chasing of the battle droids and in the
Yes,
droid bar and Jack
yes,
Black and Christopher Lloyd. Christopher
yes,
Lloyd's in that episode.
yeah,
I think I said to you not long after it, I got the same vibe with that episode as the tail end of the original run of Doctor Who in the 80s when it
yes, yeah,
became
yeah, yeah,
abundantly clear that the show was just it was desperate for the ratings to stay in existence. So
yeah,
you're talking about, the Colin Baker's second half as the sixth Doctor, and then all of Sylvester McCoy's 2-3 years
yes,
from like whatever it is, 87 to 89, and you've got Ken Dodd's in there, the
mm,
late great Ken Dodd. You've got Hale and Pace.
yeah,
These people were all famous people out with Doctor who were getting rolled out to either be themselves in the show or play to play some sort of character. And it
yes,
felt like time after time after time, you were getting these big celebrity names because it was going to get attention in the newspapers, good or
yeah,
bad. It was going to get attention in the newspapers, and I got that same sinking feeling with that episode in particular. Jack Black,
yeah,
Christopher Lloyd, Lizzo. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm more than happy to be corrected. Those three could be guest stars on any show that they want themselves, right?
yeah,
Christopher Lloyd, sci-fi royalty. I don't know
yeah,
what's above royalty.
yes,
You know,
deity.
Doc Brown, exactly. Jack Black, he's making a comeback. He's a movie star.
Yes,
He's a Hollywood
he
movie
never went
star.
away. Jack Black never went away. He never
Exactly.
went away.
And Lizzo's one of the most popular singers and multimedia stars again on the face of the earth.
Yes,
So why are they all crammed into this one episode?
yes,
What's the trick here? What's the a really good example again to reflect on the previous couple of series of the Mandalorian is John Leguizamo.
mm,
John Leguizamo.
yeah.
Luigi in the
Luigi,
original
yeah. John
Super
Leguizamo.
Mario.
It's
Yeah,
John
exactly.
Leguizamo. Yeah,
Benny
Leguizamo.
Blanco from the Bronx in
Yeah.
Carlito's Way.
I
Fantastic actor. He's in he's in the John Wick movies as well, is he not? Is he in the
think
John Wick
so.
movies?
I think
I think he
so.
might be.
Yeah.
Anyway, he voices a character. It's not even him. I don't even think it's him in the rubber suit, but he voices one of the characters at the start. I think it's the first episode of The Mandalorian at the boxing match between the two Gamorrean pig guys. That's him. That's his
Mm,
voice, right?
mm.
You've got Richard Ayoade, who voices one of the droids in the second series. You know,
Mm.
that's fine.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yep.
They're 5 episodes apart. You
Yeah.
know, Bill Burr is in that same
Bill
episode as
Burr's, yeah,
well,
he's yep.
and is great in it. Is absolutely
Yes.
fantastic in it.
Yes.
Clancy Jones, I think, is in the same episode. But again,
Yep.
you know, it's not. Look who we've got.
Nick
Look who all
Nolte,
this is.
I have spoken.
And with the greatest of respects to Clancy Jones and Bill Burr and Richard Ayoade and all that, they're not Lizzo, right? They don't have the prestige of Christopher Lloyd, and they're certainly not Jack Black, exactly as you say, Luke, who never went away.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. They're all in
But
this one
Lizzo was only brought in, or so I've read because Jon Favreau was like, "Oh, my daughter likes her," and it's like, well, okay, yeah, you might have got kudos with your kid, but
8 episodes, right? That's fine with 26 episodes.
Yeah.
You know, it's 26 episodes, that's fine. Filler, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Blah.
And
I mean, the thing is as well. Like, I mean, I found it very disrespectful to those three stars because the episode was garbage. The dialogue was awful.
Yes.
The direction clearly wasn't there.
Yes.
And it's also like, should you not respect them? I mean, you know, you're getting Lizzo in because your daughter's a big fan. Well, you know, give her something. Give her something. Like what?
Yeah.
I mean, what's her role in? What's her role in that episode? To pet and then knight Grogu. I mean, she's better than that. She's you know, they're all better than that. We're all better than that, right?
I mean, we say she's better than that. I mean, maybe she can act. I don't know, but whatever was going on there was zero acting going on. It was painful. And also, I mean, I love Jack Black, but whatever show Jack Black was thinking he was in was not the Mandalorian.
It wasn't the Mandalorian. Big time.
And I love Jack Black. I love him just about everything he's in.
Do you know what really, really aggravates me about that particularly his performance in it is that he's meant to be some sort of ex-Imperial officer.
Yes.
And that he's gone through this same rehabilitation program. Now, what, like, we've been led to believe and we've been shown for 40 years what Imperial officers and Imperials are like. So what's he done? What did he do when at the height of the Empire? What was he up to? What blood is on his hands? Because let's be honest, if we're going by what the show and the books and the comics and what have you, these guys were capable of anything, and the absolute worst atrocities that you could imagine. And again, that's not me making that up. That's what we've been told for the last 40, 50 years, what these guys are into. But now he's all cuddly and he's got the beard and he's got the daft hair and everything's a bit of a joke and all the rest of it. The guy's an ex-Imperial officer.
Yes. How they aren't thinking about what it was like after World War II. What did the Nazi scientists go and do? You know, some of them went and hid. Some of them were, taken by various other world nations, to work on the moon race, the NASA, the rock, all that kind of stuff. So they, taken to Russia, taken to the US, blah, 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 blah. So why are we not thinking about it in those terms? Some of them were ashamed. They were ashamed. They were trying to hide it. They didn't,
Absolutely that's another issue though that I always had with the prequels was that everything needs to be a thing. In the prequels, everything has to be a thing. Everything has to be a thing. Everything's whether that's a thing that it becomes a toy or it becomes a level in a Lego video game or it becomes a T-shirt or what have you. Everything's a thing in the prequels, and that's what that felt like. With that sort of backstory for Jack, I say it's a backstory. It's one line of dialogue, right? That's the extent of the backstory that we get for these punters.
Yeah.
And I thought everything's got to be a thing. Jack Black's got to be an ex-Imperial officer.
Yes.
Could he not have been something that we don't know about? He could have been literally anything, but they decided it's got to be a thing. He's got to be an ex-Imperial officer.
Yeah.
And again, it begs the question: what has this guy done? I mean, he was so bad that he had to be rehabilitated. What's he done?
Yeah.
But when you ask that question, and we're talking about it just now, when you then look at the reality of the episode and how the character's portrayed and written, it's all a big laugh. It's all a big jaw. It's Jack Black. He used to be, he murdered X amount of people with the stroke of a hand, one order.
Yeah.
But it's all right. It's okay. It's Jack Black, get it?
Right, like Jack Black. I mean, you think. Let's go back to like Star Wars. Like Jack Black, the original trilogy. He could have been, he could have been some like transporter dude. Like he's
Yeah.
cargo. He transports
Anything.
cargo. He could be
Anything.
a lovable guy who does some kind of minuscule
Absolutely.
job, maybe outside of the empire, right? He could
Absolutely.
be like a goofy pirate, like a
Absolutely.
bartender,
Absolutely. Any of these things. But he wasn't. He was an Imperial officer, Luke.
right? And just like what?
He
I
wasn't. That's
just
the thing. It's not like, oh, he was an ex-stormtrooper.
mm,
Because we've seen in the sequel trilogy that stormtroopers can be, can have morals and all the rest of it.
yes,
John Boyega's Finn is the leading light of that, but he's not. He's
yes.
an officer, so he had a pedigree enough within the military to rise through the ranks of not just being a grunt on
Yeah.
the ground.
Oh god, it was so exhausting. I mean,
Then
every
again,
episode was
but this is the
exhausting.
thing, right? This is the thing. It's like maybe he's going to come back. Maybe we're going to get this story. Maybe this backstory
No,
will be told in a
no,
future series.
no,
But why would we care?
no.
Why would we care?
Yeah, he's not coming back. These
No,
are
no, no,
are
no, absolutely not.
Lizzo and this guy, like they're not coming back. And if they do come back, it's because someone has watched us criticize it and have said they're determined to bring them back. But I guarantee you, this was a one and done.
Yeah, take the
Glimpse.
check. Take the
Yeah,
check and move on, right? Listen, look,
absolutely.
I'm not averse to that at all. Everybody's got a right to work, and everybody's got a right to take a paycheck. And if Disney are waving
Yeah.
are
Oh,
wanting to park a dump truck of money on your front lawn, are you going to say no? Of course you're
yeah.
not,
I mean,
right?
this thing, I don't blame any actor for being
Absolutely,
in this show. I don't blame any actor for taking a stupid
absolutely,
movie, a stupid TV show role.
absolutely.
I don't even blame the Ghost Rider for Richard Osman. But had it, got it in there, got it in. Yes. I
That's
I
been teed up. You've teed that up for a long, long time. That it's a very special moment. I'm glad I was able to share it with you.
ah felt so good
The
to get
relief
that.
is palpable. The relief is palpable 5,000 miles away.
I know, right? I don't blame anyone who takes this stuff for
Of
the
course.
jobs. Like I
Absolutely.
understand we all want to work.
Absolutely.
We need. So this is not a criticism of that. It's also it gets complicated even more so because it's even when it comes to the producing and the writing of the show and stuff like that. You have to understand. Yes, these people are hired to do this job, and then there will be other powers above them that are
Of course. Of
dictating what they need to do
course.
and how they need to do it.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a question of how much power does Filoni and
Of course.
Favreau have. They seem to claim that they have a lot and that there was no outside influence. So then it's
Yep.
just a matter of, okay, did you guys just do a bad job this season?
Yep.
Maybe you did.
Yeah. They've
And it
got a lot on their
sucks.
plate. I mean,
Yeah.
we've said this already tonight. They've got a lot on their plate. They've got a lot of moving parts. They've got a lot of spinning plates. They've got a lot on their schedule.
Yeah.
And they as people within the organization are only getting more and more responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down. I think it comes down to what we've chatted about before. Is that it seemed to be working so well,
Mm,
so well that that in the first series that
mm,
it was working and it worked. It worked
mm.
perfectly.
Yeah.
Why would you mess around with it? Why would you break it? Why would you try and make it into something that it's not?
Even
And when you look at the fourth episode of the third series and the first episode of the first series, and I understand the evolution. I get that. Of course, I get that. I totally
yeah.
understand it. But they're like two different shows.
Yes.
They're like two
Well,
completely different shows with different people behind them.
yeah. Even
But
like when you
that's
think,
the important thing is it's
yeah.
nobody different behind the scenes.
Yeah, no. It also when you think about like the dark saber, like the Mandalorian, Din Djarin just gives it up to
He goes over.
Bo-Katan.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, whoa. Like
Yeah.
you're doing some, I don't know, some word ninja moves here to sort of
To justify. Yeah.
justify why I'm
Yeah.
giving you back this sword.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. He would have given it to her from the very beginning.
I think he offers, doesn't he? I'm pretty sure he offers in the last. I think he offers in the last episode of the second series. I'm pretty sure he does. It's not something that, and she can't accept it because it's got to be one in combat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What?
Psycho in the chat just brings up, says, understand it's Kennedy's fault, Kathleen Kennedy, her fault. Everything she touches gets destroyed. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But they, and I don't know who you are, Psycho follows that up with, they hate Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like she does get a lot of, she is sort of the head of the operation, so she gets a lot of, frustration directed towards her from a lot of pundits on the YouTubes and things like that. Some of it, it's like, well, the frustration has to go somewhere, I guess. And I guess that's a pretty easy target. But then you hear other stories where like, no, she's in charge, but she's not like telling us what to do. So then it's like, okay, well, so then it's got to be Favreau's fault and Filoni's fault.
Yeah.
Either
Nobody
way,
ever seems
something
to take the
hasn't
blame.
worked.
Yeah. Nobody ever seems to take the blame, but that's not, that's nothing new for Hollywood. It's nothing new for big business. It's nothing new for any sort of work, right? That's it. I always remember Neil Warnock, the famous football manager. I think he's back managing now. He always said, there was a documentary made about him in the early 2000s, and he always said that footballers will never blame themselves. It's always someone else. It's always a teammate. It's always the conditions. It's always they didn't get sleep last night. It's always that, it's always someone else, right? And that's just life. That's it. And I'll be honest. I mean, I think Kathleen Kennedy, I think she's become this unwarranted figure of hate because of who she is, right? Because of the position that she holds.
Easy target.
She's held for such a long time, and I don't think it's always been warranted. I really don't, and I really don't. But again,
the problem, I think, is that so much of new Star Wars hasn't been good.
Yeah.
And
there's been more failures than successes, right?
Yeah.
And again, but that comes back to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
When you have the success, why don't you latch onto that? Why don't you keep that going, or keep it going as long as you can? And it just feels like three series. I mean, 16 episodes on from the finale of the first season, and we're in this state already, and it just does not feel right. It just doesn't feel. It doesn't feel true to the show. And I think the reason that I certainly feel passionate about it is because I enjoyed the first series so much.
Same.
Dude,
I got two Grogus here. There's one to my left and one to my right. Like I was sold.
Absolutely. Absolutely that.
I wouldn't purchase something that I hate.
I think that, what it's interesting, just to come back very quickly to the Darksaber concept. Now, I've said before that I'm in no way, shape, or form an expert on the animated series, or any of the animated series. My understanding of it is that the Darksaber features very, very prominently in the Clone Wars with Bo-Katan and subsequent other people and what have you, as does a lot of the Mandalorian history.
Yeah.
And I would be interested to see what the reaction is from people who are fans of the Clone Wars, to see what they did with the Darksaber, because from my limited understanding throughout the Mandalorian, which is where I've seen it most prominently, is that this was a relic, and this was the Excalibur. This was the piece of kit, and from fandom, people were really, really excited when they saw at the end of the first series Moff Gideon cutting his way out of a TIE fighter with the Darksaber, and that was the first time that you saw on in live action.
Yeah.
And I would be interested to see what the reaction is now that that's been broken, and how it was broken, and it just all felt a little bit like just a little tacked on, and was it meant to be symbolic and all that? It's hard work, hard work to get through it.
Some of we can kind of chat more about the finale and sort of wrap up, but this is something we definitely need to talk about, though, is Mecha Grogu.
Must we?
This is where because I've mentioned so many times, the inconsistencies of what Grogu is capable of and not frustrates me quite a lot. Because it's like, again, we mentioned earlier, I'm not going to go back through it all, but he's meant to be an infant. So if he's an infant, how can he control? How does he have the capacity to control a robot? How does he have the capacity to understand Luke and the training that he had with Luke, and understand the Force and manipulate the Force
for years?
Yes. Which, again, we are told this off camera in an interview. Hey, by the way, he's with Luke for several years.
That's right. Yep. Yeah.
Which doesn't track at all. But now he's been given a a robot suit so that what he can it can make sense that he's able to keep up and now he can fight.
Yeah. Which in fairness, he doesn't really do. Like, I mean, I
Okay.
thought they were gonna give him a blaster or something like that, but I mean, you're right, it's just he's just got another vehicle to follow the rest of them. What happened to his pod? Did the pod not work? Was
Well,
the pod
I
in for
the
repairs?
pod's probably getting boring, and this is gonna sell toys.
Well,
A little Grogu toy inside an
inside an
IG-11.
IG-12, and also we've talked about this before. It's not IG-12. That's not how it works. That's not within the canon of the show. That
Mm,
again, you've told us all is what we're meant to believe in. You can't just rename it IG-12. There's already an IG-12 out there
yes.
doing whatever it is. They're assassin droids. You can't rename it like that. It's IG-11 repurposed because then they go back at the end and it's IG-11 again. So what?
Yeah,
I,
they
do
do.
you know what I mean? And I am acutely aware of how absolutely pathetic I sound having as a fully grown man having a problem with this stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Acutely aware of it, very very self aware of it.
Yes.
But it's real to me, damn it,
Yeah, yeah,
as the meme says, right? It's
yeah,
real to me, and that
yeah,
listen, you got to believe in something.
yeah.
And oh, it's it's soul crushing. It was soul crushing at times to watch this stuff.
Honestly, I really feel that Grogu's story was done with season 2, and
I
I
think so.
understand it,
I think so.
cute little baby Yoda. You don't
I
want to
think so.
get rid of it, but
I think so. I
it
think
was
so. I
it was
think we
time.
got in the Book of Boba Fett, we got him subduing the Rancor that
Mm.
was running mad in Mos Eisley, and that's fine. That's okay. It showed that he'd learned and all this, and but I
Well,
think you're.
it's
I think
inconsistent though. It's one moment he can
oh
stop a Rancor, and then the next moment he can't do anything. And I'm like, what
yeah,
is
I know,
wrong with you,
I know,
child?
I know. Yeah, like I mean, surely subduing a Rancor would have been harder to take care of than three
Imperial
Praetorian
soldiers.
guards.
Yeah.
Which again, now and again, this annoyed me a little bit because growing up, the Emperor's royal guards, the ones in the red, were always mysterious, right? You only ever see them in a guarding position, and then in the
Yeah.
expanded universe, they really really elaborate on it. In so there's two Dark Horse comic series,
Mm.
Crimson Empire and Crimson Empire 2, and they're
Yes.
fabulous, and they really go into what it takes to become one of these guys and what you've got to be capable of and what you are asked to do.
Mm.
And we got introduced to these guys in a the Last Jedi,
Mhm.
and they got taken care of fairly easily. I'd say, it was a
Yeah.
10-minute fight, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then we get reintroduced to them in the penultimate episode of The Mandalorian, where they kill the heavy gunner.
Yes.
But then in the next episode after that, they're subdued pretty easily. I
Yeah.
mean, it wasn't really much of a challenge. So again, what are we meant to believe here?
Yeah.
Who are we meant to believe? What's the just,
So, like,
come on,
in this finale, focusing on Grogu again, in this finale, but during the same scene, after he defeats the Imperial guards,
Yep,
um, and then the one guy's sending down the ship to crash into the Civic
yep,
Center.
yep, yep.
Oh no, he doesn't crash the Civic Center. He
I
crashes
do,
into
no, no,
the
no, no. The Civic Center's been
yeah,
demolished for the
yeah,
Imperial facility. I think
yeah.
is the
Um, you then get this moment where there's all this fire coming up,
yep,
and it engulfs Gideon, and then
yep,
it begins to overtake Bo-Katan, the
yep,
Mandalorian, and Grogu, and
yep.
then there's this big swell of majestic music where
Yes,
he's protecting them with the Force, and it's almost
yep,
like, and it's like there's been it sounded as if the music made you think that this was a moment that was hard for Grogu, that Grogu's been learning and learning, and oh, he's learned the Force and can save the
yeah,
day. That's the way the music was played. And I'm like, but that's not what's happened. We've been seeing the
yeah.
toy bit thrown up
Ab-
in the air, doing flips and
absolutely,
using the Force.
absolutely that.
What are you doing with this? This isn't majestic. This isn't
Absolutely,
shocking or surprising because we've already seen him stop a Rancor.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. It's so inconsistent, and
Yeah,
I don't know why. I don't
I
know.
don't either. I don't either.
I don't know why. It's like we've got, you know, Classic, right? A classic thing. Again, going back to classic Doctor Who. Pretty sure near the end of the run, there used to be a person on staff at the BBC who would be like the official canon keeper. So
Yeah.
the scripts would come in, and it meant that you couldn't say that the Doctor only had one heart because it was
Right.
referenced in
Yeah.
1973's Monster Repelled Him that he's got two.
Yeah.
Now that's a very, very obvious thing, right? But they had someone there. Now this is 40 years ago, 45 years ago, right? And it's a British TV show that obviously was very, very much endeared and part of the culture, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
Why are we not getting this with one of the most protected bits of intellectual property on the face of the earth?
I mean, I assume that there probably is some sort of Bible, but they
It just
I
feels like
don't know,
that
though.
doesn't that it feels it's all well and good to have the Bible, but not if you're not going to stick to it. What's the point?
Yeah, it's like the
You know,
Bible's on the shelf, but I don't need to
we've
turn it
done it.
on
We've
chapter
done it
5.
because we have to do it. But that's it. It's done. You know, good on us. And
I mean,
yeah,
I actually this is interesting because there was an interview a while back with the Writers Guild of America where they interviewed a bunch of Star Trek writers from Star Trek's past into present, and when they were asking questions of the current shows, Strange New Worlds and things like that,
yep,
there were questions they sort of asked them about, how do they deal with the show's legacy and stuff like that.
yeah,
And it was what was interesting to me is they were the excuses that were made were that, oh well, we got to make sure that we just don't like totally break canon. I'm like, but you break canon all the
all the
time.
time. Yeah,
The fact that you have why have the lizard guy totally got the Gorn? You have the Gorn in Strange New Worlds
yep,
as a quasi alien 1979 alien like creature that gobbles up humans when first contact is with Kirk
yep,
in the arena.
yep,
And we
yep.
learned that we were encroaching on their space and they're fighting us because we're invading their territory.
And also, that's not some filler episode.
No.
That's a major piece of Star Trek iconography.
Yeah.
That whole episode and
Yeah.
everything that overtakes it, that has seeped into popular culture.
Yeah.
That whole
Yeah.
thing, that's parodied and replicated and all the rest of it. You know, it's
Yeah.
not like you've taken an obscure race from the third episode of the third series of Next Generation and you're trying to expand it and all the rest of it. That is a
Mm.
major piece of what has made the show and the franchise what it is.
Yes. Yeah. So it's weird that's like you can hear these people who write on these new shows, and I'm like, so I'm assuming similar things are happening with Mandalorian.
Must be.
That
It must
they
be.
have the big Bible, they have their knowledge source that they can go to, but they're just looking to cut corners wherever they can on certain aspects, or they're just not really fully thinking through what these arcs are going to look like. When he is saving them from the fire, what is that going to look like for his arc for the whole season? Because that's his big moment in that episode. Have we built up to that big moment, or is it just something that happens?
So here's one thing that I thought of before I came on the show is that
Mm.
if The Mandalorian wasn't Star Wars,
Mm.
that season wasn't Star Wars, and it was a completely new sci-fi show that we'd never.
Season 3 or 1?
We'll say season 3, right?
Okay,
We'll
yeah.
say season 3.
It'd be done.
How would you feel? How would you feel as a viewer watching that and
I wouldn't
seeing
have
these
finished it.
inconsistencies?
I wouldn't have finished it.
And there's your problem, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about this the last time that we were on. Is that the line that I said was, it's not up to me as a fan. It's not up to me as a lifelong fan. It's not up to the rest of the fandom to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
It's not up to us.
No, I
It's
agree.
not up to us to do that. It's not up to us to come up with reasons as to why he's doing this and then suddenly does that and then does why afterwards. That's not up to us. That's not our jobs.
Yeah.
It's not our jobs.
No. Chris quickly in the chat, Psycho says Star Wars fans hate how Kathleen Kennedy is running everything Star Wars related. They can't stand her. There is as we discussed, there is a lot of hate directed towards her.
Yeah.
I am not interested in talking about Kathleen Kennedy. I'm not. A lot of people love to talk about the politics behind behind the show.
Yeah.
I really don't give a shit. I'm interested in good writing, good storytelling, and I'm more interested in saying, I'm watching this show. Here's where the story works or where it's not working. I don't care about what you think Kathleen Kennedy's political agenda is. You
That's it,
can,
Luke.
yeah,
That's exactly it. Is that Kathleen Kennedy doesn't run every TV show, on TV. She doesn't run every movie, right? And other TV shows are doing fine, are doing well, and have done well
yeah,
without everybody knowing what that politics is. Nobody knows what the
yeah,
politics is like on every single show. You know
no,
it because it's Star Wars, right? I get that.
yeah,
I understand
yeah,
that. That's one of
yeah,
the downsides and the curses that come with the franchise being what it is and being as valuable as it is,
yes,
both emotionally, sentimentally, and also financially.
yes,
But that's my point, is that if we were sitting here talking about The Mandalorian as a completely original sci-fi show, and
mm,
it's exactly the same in terms of guest stars and writing and exposition and all the rest of it,
yeah,
exactly as you say, look, you wouldn't have watched it. You wouldn't
no,
have made it to the end.
no. I went my TV now says new Grogu toys. Psycho adds Grogu
He
is
is
the best.
adorable. I
I
mean, he
thing
is,
is,
I have I have a piece of coal where my heart used to be, and
mm,
he is adorable, right?
yes,
I get it. I also totally get why you're now seeing replications of this in other franchises. So the little Stay Puffed guys in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
yes,
There's a from I think it's a trailer for the upcoming 60th anniversary of Doctor Who that's out later this year in November, I think it is. There's a
mm,
character from the comics, actually. It's believed to be the comics. Beat the Meat.
yep,
Big eyes, big
yep,
ears,
yep,
soft and furry. I get it, right? I
yep.
get
They
it.
know what
I
they're
get it.
doing. They know what they're
And one of the
doing.
reasons we're at that stage is because when he was introduced, nobody had any idea that's what we were going to see at the end of the first episode. Nobody
Yes.
thought that. But now instead of that, we're getting battle droids.
Frank makes a point. Baby Blue from
Baby
Jurassic
Blue from
World.
Jurassic. Yep, absolutely, absolutely that. Yep, the raptor. It's a raptor, isn't it?
It's a
Yeah.
little baby raptor. Yep, yep. It's becoming a trope. It's an obvious trope now,
Yeah.
and will probably die out soon because if everyone does it, it'll become really tired. But
And then something else will come along, right?
yeah,
That's just how it works. That's not news. That's that, and it's certainly not new. And why do we not get as many westerns anymore? Why do we not get as many gangster films anymore? Why is it all comic books and you know what I mean? That's that. Listen,
yeah,
that's how it works. I'm not criticizing,
no.
not criticizing it at all.
Mm, mm,
I think that where my criticism has lain, and I wanted to touch this obviously because we've been talking about Star Trek. I don't
mm.
think it's helped. Quite frankly, I don't think it's helped that I've enjoyed Picard season
Oh,
3, which
Picard
has been
warmed my
running
heart so
concurrently.
much.
I don't think that's helped, right?
No.
I don't think it's helped in my criticism of the Mandalorian. I'm not saying that if I wasn't watching Picard at the same time that I would have thoroughly enjoyed the Mandalorian season 3, because I think all the
No, no,
criticism,
you wouldn't have. No, no.
all the criticisms that I think we've made tonight, will be perennial. I will feel this
Yeah.
way about the Mandalorian in 10 years' time, if indeed
Oh,
it's still going
definitely,
on.
definitely.
But I do not think it's helped in terms of my being able to get through it, because I know that I've also got Picard to watch. And actually, there's been countless times where I thought, wish I was watching Picard.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Picard, the whole series of Picard is the inverse of the Mandalorian.
Yeah, absolutely.
One and two are just for me unwatchable, canon breaking nonsense.
Yeah,
And then season 3 is this return to
it's
the
a
glory
liberation, right?
days of Star Trek. It
It's
was
it's it's, it's a liberation.
yeah,
It's a liberation, and it's weird, right? It's weird that you've got. I mean, there's always been that, or there certainly was when I was growing up. Star Trek versus Star Wars, and that's
yeah,
it, right? But very, very rarely did they ever go head to head. Quite as certainly not on a weekly basis, which is what's been
no,
going on over the course
yeah,
of the last couple of months. And quite frankly, that gulf between the two of them, between the two series, as you hold them up, series 3 of Picard, series 3 of The
yes,
Mandalorian, the gulf
yeah,
between the two of them is night and day, quite
yeah,
frankly.
yeah,
Execution, performance,
mm,
delivery, writing,
yeah,
it's night and day. And I genuinely I've sat and watched the last 3-4 episodes, the Lizzo episode, you name it,
yeah,
thinking, wonder what the crew
yeah.
of the Enterprise D are doing.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is,
And that's
if
not a bad thing. Of course, I'm not.
no,
I am absolutely not saying that is a criticism. Far from it. Far from it.
yeah,
It's not a criticism of Star Trek. Far from it. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed the third series.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be watching that more than I was watching The Mandalorian. Now, if you told
Yeah.
my 12-year-old self that, you told even my 15-year-old self that, I told my 25-year-old self that, I would have said, well,
That
he's
a
wrong.
show with a bunch of 70 and 80-year-olds is more
It's more
thrilling and
entertaining
action-packed than
and better
a
done.
bounty hunter
I would have
show
thought
set in the Star Wars universe.
I would have thought that I would have thought I'd been high on goofballs, quite frankly. And I'm
Yeah,
not.
man.
For the record, I'm not high on goofballs, but it's true. And again, then I start getting philosophical about it, and I start thinking, well, you know what? That's it. That's life, right? It's ups and downs. It's gutter balls and strikes, and
Hmm.
you can't be great all the time, as
Yeah.
Picard proves. As
Well,
Picard
as Star
clearly
Trek has
proves.
proved for the last
Exactly,
however many years,
exactly.
you
Since
know.
first contact,
Yeah, even that's not the best. You
Still
know,
good though, isn't it?
it's
Still good.
it's it's still good, and I enjoy it, but it's far from the best. It's
Absolutely.
the last good Star Trek movie was The Undiscovered Country. The last great Star Trek movie was The Undiscovered Country. The last
What a
great,
movie. What
yeah,
a movie.
yeah.
Fantastic. Absolutely
But
fantastic.
yeah, it is interesting seeing this unfold like this, and if I were to compare this season of The Mandalorian with, like, say, other seasons of Star Trek, Discovery or Strange New Worlds, I would say they're probably all on par in their sort of unevenness, goofiness, canon breakingness.
Here's a question for you, Luke. Here's a question, because we've
Yeah.
talked about it now. We've talked about it quite extensively on this show. You know, the nature of TV now is that, exactly, to directly quote you from earlier on this evening, the nature of TV now is that it's an 8-hour movie, it's a 10-hour movie,
Mm.
whereas Next Generation, it was episodic. It's the episodic format. Here's a question. Do you think if this show, The Mandalorian in particular, was made, same concept, do you think if it was made in the early 90s, instead of heading out towards the prequels, I'm talking about pre-prequels, do you think that would have made any difference? Do you think that The Mandalorian is perhaps becoming a victim of the
Oh, yeah.
interpretation and the expectation that we have
Do
as an
you
audience, and the trend that we've got as an audience
do
now?
you mean if it was made as a Star Wars show in the 90s?
Yeah. So a great example is the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, right?
Yep.
George Lucas made the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles in the 90s, and I think it was 3 series of maybe 15 episodes each or something. I don't know off the top of my head, but there are a
Yeah.
lot of them, right?
Yeah.
And it fills in the gaps, goes from Indy being age 9 to, I think, 25 or something, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Told in flashback from the perspective of a 90-something-year-old Dr.
The eye
Jones
patch.
in the 90s with the eye patch.
If
Yep.
he doesn't have an eye patch at the end of this new movie,
I was thinking exactly the same. I hope he loses an eye. I think that's it. I think we're going to get it. I am hopeful we get it. I'm hopeful we get it. But
I
you know how much
think
I love Indiana Jones. I used to watch that every week, every Sunday. It was on. I'm pretty sure it was on Channel 4. I think it was on Channel 4 on a Sunday afternoon. I used to watch it at my great aunt's house. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. But if The Mandalorian was made instead of that, say, do you think that we would have seen that decline so quickly?
well, no, because
Essentially what I'm asking you is it a concept problem? Is the show a concept
it's not a
problem?
concept problem. The concept is great. If The Mandalorian was made in the 90s, I could see that being a show that had legs and would go for 7 seasons.
Yeah.
I really could. Just the basic of what the basic components of season 1 could easily have sustained a 5 to 7 season TV show
Yeah.
like Buffy,
Yeah.
all the Star Trek shows, everything that, the Xena Warrior Princess, the Hercules, all that kind of stuff, all the weird shit that was on TV in the 90s.
It was
Like,
great, wasn't it? It was fantastic.
yeah, I totally believe that the concept of that could have worked even if it wasn't Star Wars, even if it was just space bounty hunter who looks like a badass,
Serenity, isn't it?
Serenity. I think it is good, but I like so many other Star Wars products, and I think the sequel trilogy fell foul to this. Things like Andor, Rogue One, all that kind of stuff. I think they do fall foul because they are so weighted down by Star Wars nostalgia? Why did like Buttface have to be in Rogue One? He didn't need to be in Rogue
Yeah, yeah.
One. Um,
Ponda
there's
Baba.
so yeah, that guy. I call him Buttface. Buttface. He's Buttface. He's always been Buttface. Why was Panda Boo Boo? Why
Kung
why
Fu Panda Boo Boo.
why would they don't need to be in there. We don't need to see the droids.
Everything's got to be a thing.
Just
Everything's
let
got to be a
the
thing.
story tell itself.
Yeah.
Get rid of the nostalgia stuff because you have good characters. I am interested in Bo-Katan.
Yeah.
I think there is something there. I think this whole season could have been a really good duo,
Yeah.
back and forth between the two of them. Because frankly, him talking to Grogu was boring.
Yeah. Do you know you've raised a really good point there that it's only just struck me. Now, we've talked before. I love dialogue, right? I've always loved dialogue. From I'm talking about Danger Mouse dialogue, Count Duckula dialogue, Power Rangers dialogue. These aren't necessarily the best bits of dialogue, but some of the best movies and best TV shows we talked about on this show. Last Crusade. The dialogue between the Jones boys is fantastic, absolutely fantastic,
cracking.
and one of the absolute core parts of it being such a wonderful movie. Lethal Weapon, exactly the same, and all the subsequent sequels. You start throwing in Joe Pesci in there, absolutely fantastic, right?
Joe Pesci, yeah, he's great.
Double teams, right? Double teams. Home Alone, even Joe Pesci in Home Alone with
I can't remember his name. I know, tall guy. Yeah,
he was the voiceover for the Wonder Years. Anyway, dialogue based, even action movies, dialogue. I was talking to a former colleague of mine today. We were talking about Die Hard with a Vengeance, and we were talking about Welcome to the Party, Pal, and all this stuff. Great dialogue that also sits alongside whatever the rest
Daniel
of the show
Stern,
is.
Marv.
That's it. There's the dialogue between Bo-Katan and Jin Djarin.
It's boring, but
non-existent.
This is where it's confusing because there's a part of me that's like, how much how was Pedro Pascal on set?
Well, this is the thing, right? This is the thing.
Is this why he was so
he doesn't
scaled
take his
back?
helmet off the series? It's the first time in the show that you don't see his face.
So it's like, was he really there? His dialogue was really basic. All of his scenes really basic. Was it that he was so busy with The Last of Us?
Yep. And everything else.
The Nick Cage movie, whatever else he's doing. He was in Wonder Woman, but that was ages ago. But I guess that's a long time ago now. Is it that he's just rising up so high that like in the way that Sherlock became impossible to film because everyone loved Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman all of a sudden?
Yeah. Listen, it could. Hey, it could be.
But
it could be. I mean, that doesn't do you know the weird thing about that is, right? The weird thing about that is that we've talked about it extensively tonight and before. We feel that we lose the canon. The writers drop the canon at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
At the drop of a hat, things can get changed and moved about and just forget about it. Yet this whole series, Jin Djarin doesn't remove his helmet once. It's the only piece of consistency that we've had, arguably throughout the entire run of the series, not just the third season, but the whole series, where he doesn't remove because that's the creed. Yes. Now, Bo-Katan has it and takes it off, and we even get, that's the thing, we even get given a legitimate excuse for him to remove it should he want to, because the armorer says that we've got to evolve and we've got to, you've got to respect different elements of the creed and all the rest of it, and yet it still doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Now, it's an interesting point. It was a case of because he wasn't necessarily there, then the actors didn't have that same rapport, and it's also getting overdubbed. And look, I don't know.
Yeah,
we shouldn't be having to come up with these excuses.
No, but imagine how fun a show could have been with a disgraced Din Djarin and a rogue Bo-Katan going on they spend 5 episodes going on a round of adventures. Doing something
that then, won't they element to it as well.
Yeah. That then leads to the big turning point in the season, maybe say 4 episodes in, where the whole turn is that actually she needs to go, they together need to win back her rogue faction of Mandalorians, and he needs to redeem himself so they can go and reclaim Mandalorian. or Mandalore, or maybe they could have reclaimed Mandalore, and at the end of that season, once he's finally done it with them, then he goes and bathes himself in the waters in front of everyone. Like no one actually
And
saw him
that's it.
do it.
And that's it.
Well, I
And
guess
then you get
Bo and Grogu did, but like,
and that's it. And it's tied off. And if they want to do a fourth series or what have you, then they can whenever they're ready.
yeah,
Do you know I hate to go back to it. I really, really do hate to go back to that episode with Christopher Lloyd and Lizzo and Jack Black.
Yeah.
The chase sequence through the city and then going to the droid bar.
yes,
I didn't mind it so much. Apart from what we've said about, a Jin Darren being incapable of doing all that stuff. But do you know what I liked about it? I liked the idea that it's these two, Bo-Katan, Jin Darren. They're chasing down a perp. They're chasing down a perp, right, in some seedy place, and then they're going to go into a bar and do a bit of investigatory work, and they're working as a team, and she is this and he does that, and again, it's that there was that prime opportunity to get, even just for that one episode, let's Lethal Weapon its ass, They don't get on. Totally. They don't believe in each other. All this, but there was just none of that. There was none of it. And
yeah, it was weird. They dropped the ball. There was so much cool stuff they could have done with those two.
Absolutely. And the thing is, right? The thing is, and I'm not, and please do not see this as being derogatory towards your writing capability, and the same for myself. But if we can come up with this stuff, right? If we can come up with this stuff, these Hollywood writers on this show, but again, we've got to hold our hands up and say, look, we're not in that room. Maybe they did have that. Maybe that's what it was meant to be. Maybe that's what the series was going to be like. And upstairs said, we're not.
That's the problem. We don't know what
you don't know. You don't know.
What's the Blade Runner story behind this? What's the producer who wants their way? The 5 different, the story, Blade Runner, the movie.
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah,
so
all the
that's
different
famous.
Yeah,
cuts. Famous for all of its producers wanting their way.
Yeah, of course.
And it it's a miracle that the theatrical cut is as good as it is in spite of that. But thank God
Absolutely.
we got the final cut, because that's
and it's exactly as you say, it's nothing new, right? It's nothing new, and it will not be the last time that something like this happens, right? No. I think that comparison that I say there is, if this wasn't Star Wars, if this was a show of its own, I don't want to say a show of its own merit, because I think that sounds derogatory towards original writing and what have you. But if it's a show that didn't have the weight of being a Star Wars show, would you still be watching it at the end of this series? Probably not. No. I know I wouldn't. You certainly wouldn't. So
no, I would have given up before. I only watched it because I'm like, this is the Mandalorian, and I want to see where this crashes at the end. There's 2 really random questions from Psycho in the chat. I'm assuming the Psycho has watched my really old video about The Magician's Nephew and stuff in Netflix. No, not really old, couple months ago, I guess. But asks in a follow-up question, do you think Netflix is waiting for Stranger Things to end so they can start focusing on Chronicles of Narnia? That would make sense to me. There's no sense in Stranger Things is coming to an end now, and we know that Netflix have had Narnia for a while and have done nothing with it. And also with Percy Jackson coming out on Disney Plus, with a new Harry Potter adaptation coming out on HBO, it makes sense. Don't be surprised if Netflix suddenly announces in the next 6 months to 12 months, Chronicles of Narnia, we've cast our Pevensey children. Here you go. That will be their next big thing, because they can get they can milk that for a while. You can.
And that's the thing, right? That's the thing. So, we had the Star Wars Celebration, which is biannual, with 3 episodes to go, 2 episodes to go of The Mandalorian, and that probably didn't help, because you've had all these interviews and subsequent comments about The Mandalorian not being The Mandalorian anymore, and all the trailers and things like that for Ahsoka, and that, I think, has put into a lot of fans' heads, I'm done with this. Give us the new stuff. Give us the new stuff. We enjoyed it. It's got its faults. Give us the new stuff. And that's why I said earlier on that I think that when the Ahsoka comes out later on this year, I think it will be a completely different show.
I look forward to seeing that.
I hope so. Well, that's it. I mean, I hope so. I expect so. I expect there to be that sort of rejuvenated energy about it. Whether that happens or not, who knows? That's out of our control,
Yeah.
and you don't know whose control that's in. But I think, it's a very interesting thing that we talk about with Stranger Things as well, is that, again, was I a massive fan of the last series of it?
Oh, I
Not as
stopped
much.
after series 3.
Well,
Or
there you
maybe
go.
2.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the same show for me, quite frankly. But
Yeah.
again, I get that these things grow arms and legs, and I get that they have this expectation, and there's an expectation to keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger. I get that. I understand that. I do understand that. I still think you can do that well without getting ridiculous. And I don't think. I think there are. I think I would rather that wasn't the exception to the rule, as opposed to what happens most of the time.
Yeah.
But that's it, right?
Yeah.
That's
True.
it.
We got a quote from Frank in the chat. The famous dubbed line from Harrison Ford in Blade Runner: "Sushi. That's what my ex-wife called me. Cold fish."
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
Ford.
not
And then
great, is it? It's not great. It took me a
and
long time to watch that version. Actually, it wasn't the first one that I saw. I think
yeah.
whatever one came out in the late 90s that was at the director's cut, I think was released. That was the first time that I saw it.
Yeah.
It was Son's voiceover.
Yeah, yeah. And then one last comment from Psycho says, "Sure, Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe might be the most famous book in the Chronicles of Narnia, but should start with Miniatures Navy because because it being a prequel to Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe. But let's just wait and see." Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the original line up of the Narnia books. I do love Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Silver Chair as the initial kicking off point.
Yeah.
But you know what? I sort of expect that since the books have been rearranged in chronological order, I would expect them to do it in that order, and I would expect them to probably put Horse and His Boy. I'd be interested to see how they're going to handle the Horse and His Boy, because that is a story that takes place in between the Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe and Prince Caspian, because it takes place during the four kids' reign at Narnia. So will they do Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe, and then do a Horse and His Boy, and then
Yep.
end the Horse and His Boy with the ending of that, to kind of elongate the amount of time that they have with that, instead of maybe that's probably what they would. It's what I would, if I were to sit and really think about it and want to get 7 seasons, 7 books, 7 seasons out of it. That's probably how I would abandon my artistic integrity.
It's just that easy, right? It's just that easy. It can happen just like that. What I think's interesting is, I mean, I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan in the world. I never really got into it as the books, and I certainly didn't watch the movies.
No.
And obviously you've got this announcement that HBO is it HBO? Is it HBO that's doing the TV show? Paramount, maybe HBO,
or it's Max. It's called Max now.
Max. Sorry, I beg your pardon. That's right. So what I thought was interesting, and I immediately thought this, but I've spoken to some friends of mine who are big Harry Potter fans, and the first thing they said was, "Well, how can you do a TV series?"
Yeah,
with the kids all growing up, because there's 2 years between seasons, and we've seen it in Stranger Things, right? They're men and women now in Stranger Things, and they literally started off as children 10 years ago or what have you. That's how time works, unfortunately. But I thought my idea to do something like that would be just recast the roles like you do in The Crown. Nobody's got a problem. Nobody sat down and made sure that the person, they weren't going to have 60 years of this show to tell the 6th series of Queen Elizabeth's reign.
Yeah.
So if you recast it for 1st and 2nd year at Hogwarts, 3rd and 4th year, and then 5th and 6th.
I mean, with Harry Potter,
for age appropriate actors. That's how I would have done it.
With you mean with the movies that they did? I mean,
no, I'm talking about the TV series.
TV show.
I'm talking
think
about the TV
show could probably be okay, but they would need to film it and release it like classic network TV.
Of course.
A season a year would have to come out,
yeah,
or it wouldn't work. Or
absolutely.
it would get awkward like Stranger Things did, when you're like, you guys are like 19 now, and you're still meant to be in like grade school. Like, come on. So they would have to do it that way. Maybe film 2 seasons at a time to
Well, I mean, one of the things that I really liked about The Crown actually was that energy, and that different energy that we've talked about it a lot tonight, is the different energy, and it feels like a reset, right? It feels like a complete reboot every second series.
Definitely. Frank in the chat says he's surprised that Disney and WB haven't tried to redo The Wizard of Oz. You know, I am genuinely surprised about that as well. I've thought
Yeah,
for
did you?
years, I guess they did that TV show. There was an Oz
There
TV
was an
show
Oz
that was
TV show.
kind of like a crimey show that I don't think ever really took off.
Yeah. And that
But
again, that's another sort of franchise that's got so much more to it than what everybody knows.
yeah,
The
they don't
L.
realize
Frank
that
Baum
there's like
books
a
are,
massive
oh
pile
yeah,
of
they're
books
huge,
that
absolutely
Frank L.
huge.
Baum did.
Do you
That's
know?
a
I
good one.
remember. I remember in P5,
Mm,
our teacher. I think it was at the start of the Easter holidays. Our teacher had bought all these. I can't remember who the publisher was, but you used to get all the kind of classic
mm,
children's literature,
yeah.
and they all looked the same. They all had the same sort of like design.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
the
yeah.
picture was different. It might have been Puffin. It might have been Puffin. I can't remember. Anyway,
Yeah.
she bought a whole load of these, and as a gift to us as a class, you were allowed to go up and pick whatever one that you wanted.
Oh,
So it
wonderful.
was things like Gulliver's Travels, Kidnapped, all the Black Beauty, all the classic ones were there.
Mm,
And I was debating between Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, I think it is,
I think that, yeah.
and Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. And
Mm,
I was like, at that age, I was amazed that it was a book series.
mm.
So that's what swayed me on it, was that I'd never knew. All I knew was that it was a movie, and all the rest of it. And obviously there's Return to Oz, which is terrifying, which I'd seen as well.
Yeah, it is, man.
And
Shit.
I still love it though. I still think
It's
it's great.
good. It's
I think
weird,
it's
but good.
fantastic. It's bizarre. It's bonkers. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a really, really good question. Yeah, I'm surprised that it's not been mined. It could be a rights thing. It could be a
That
rights thing. It could
that's
be.
what Frank says is maybe it's a rights thing.
Yeah, I mean, if
Yeah.
Disney have got if Disney, because Return to Oz is for all we know, that's a 50-year lease that they've got of that property, and they just don't have the time and effort and inclination to do it.
It's
It could be something as simple as that.
it's possible. We have two interesting questions in the chat from Psycho. Psycho, you're just throwing everything at us at the moment. This is hilarious. The one question is, what is the most overrated Disney movie under Walt Disney? Top 5. I'm not sure what they would be. I would say
Overrated,
what?
overrated
Oh,
movies, animated.
yeah.
I don't like The
Fantasia would be
Lion King.
one. I don't give a shit about Fantasia. Everyone seems to love Fantasia.
The
Fucking hate
Lion King for me doesn't do it.
Lion King
The
is
Lion King for me,
plagiarized, so yeah, that can be one.
I don't know. I'm now trying to Beauty and the Beast. I think I'm probably just more naming ones that I know, as opposed to
Yeah.
being able to kind of offer any
I
sort of
don't have I would have to really go back and like properly look at that, but I would say Fantasia for sure. That's one that I really just don't like.
pretty
The
boring.
next great question is top 5 Katy Perry songs. What do you got, Jonathan? What do you got?
I don't think I'm not being glib here, but I genuinely don't think I know 5. I don't
I
think I
love
know
Katy
5. I
Perry,
think I
dude.
know 3. I Kissed a Girl. Is that even what it's called? I remember that.
Yep.
That was big.
I
And then
Kissed a Girl and I liked it. Yeah.
there's the Tarzan video one.
Yeah.
There's
I
that
can't
one.
remember what that one's
Roar.
from though.
Roar, is it? Roar?
Roar. Yep.
I don't know.
I would
Katy Perry?
definitely say I Kiss a Girl is a good one.
It's a good song, right? It's a
California
banger.
Girl. Yep. California Girl is fun. Teenage Dream is great. What else is good?
Roar. Are you putting Roar in there?
I'd put Roar in there. Why
Okay,
not?
all
Why
right.
not?
It was a
Oh,
mega
I
hit.
think
It was a global mega hit, right?
she had another one called Dark Horse. I think it's Dark Horse. Let me see if that's right. Because that one's also really good. If I'm looking at the right one.
I
Yeah,
remember
Dark Horse.
watching
Horse.
Katy Perry perform it. I think it was the MTV European Video Awards or what have you.
Yes.
It was a long time ago. I was still in university at the time. And
Frank says E.T. That's another really good one. Katy Perry's got some bangers. She's got some bangers. She's good. I like Katy Perry.
And I remember and I don't know what she'd been doing backstage. I'm not here to speculate what was going on backstage, but very, very rarely do you hear someone murder their own song.
Oh, was it bad?
She should have been arrested on the spot for what she was doing to her thing. Yeah.
Yeah, TGIF. That's another one. Yeah, I could put together.
I'll be honest. I didn't think she had such a productive career. Quite frankly, but then again, I listen to Wagner while I'm writing, and that speaks volumes, quite frankly. And I'll be honest, I don't know the names of the tracks, but I only stick it on because it doesn't have any words.
Yes. Well, I can't listen to lyrical music while I'm
No.
writing or anything like that. I can listen to lyrical music when I'm maybe thinking and plotting and stuff like that. But yeah, but that's normally I actually have playlists that I tailor towards the book or project I'm working on.
Well, see, I can't even listen to movie soundtracks when I'm writing because I will
Oh, I
immediately
can.
be drawn into that movie. So John
Oh,
Williams
interesting.
is gone. There's no chance that I can listen to John Williams or
Interesting.
or whatever. Because Hans Zimmer, I cannot be drawn in because I will immediately be drawn into whatever that is. If it's Yoda's theme, so for example, not
Right.
to show off, but I was working out this morning. I say working out. I was on my Peloton bike, and I was doing a recovery ride because, quite frankly, I can't walk, having played far too much football for the last 20 years. And I was doing a recovery ride, and Yoda's theme from Empire Strikes Back, original motion picture soundtrack, came on at the end, and I was gone, man. I was away because that I was transported to watching it and the elements of it. And it's the same when I'm writing. There's no use me sitting writing to
Yeah.
original movie soundtracks because I will just
Fair enough.
write to that, you know.
Interesting, interesting. I don't get pulled in that much. I can find like a track, but I won't maybe listen to like say like the Raiders March or anything
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that. Psycho also asks, we got two more really good questions, and then we'll wrap up. Psycho says, who's the better pop artist, Katy Perry or Taylor Swift? Hands down, Katy Perry. Taylor Swift is not my cup of
Do
tea.
you know, I was on. I'm going to do a shout out at the moment. It's for 8 Albums, which is a wonderful music blog run by Stephen Keedy. He asked me what my album of the year in
Mm,
2022 was, and I picked Taylor Swift's
you're never
because I
coming on my
thoroughly
show
enjoyed
again.
it, and I was more surprised. I was more. No one was more surprised than me when that came up top of the list. I thought it was. I thought as a pop album from start to finish, you couldn't get better than it. Don't
what
ask
was
me to
it?
name any tracks from it right enough. Don't even
Okay,
ask
then
me what
how
the
good
title of
was
it
it? Then
was.
how good was it?
That's
How good was it then? And then what was what's your favorite Cartoon Network show growing up? Top five. I can give you
oh,
mine quickly.
go for it.
Um, there was Cartoon Planet, which was a Space Ghost parody.
Yep,
Dexter's Laboratory,
yep,
Johnny Bravo,
yep,
Powerpuff Girls.
yep.
Oh shit. Ah
Cow
shit.
and Chicken.
What was that?
Cow and Chicken was one of them.
Cow and Chicken. Cow and
Cow and
Chicken.
Chicken.
Cow and Chicken was good.
Thoroughly
You know what?
enjoyed Cow and
I'll
Chicken.
give it to Cow and Chicken. Yeah,
Cow and
those were yeah.
It was the cartoons, wasn't it? That was that it was like Friday nights or something on a. But Cartoon Network used to do anime as well. They
They
used to
did.
have. It was it Toonami, I think it. Toonami was it?
Toonami, that was it. Yes, Toonami.
And you used to get like Dragon Ball Z and stuff and Gundam
Yeah,
Wing and things like that. It was like Friday nights or Saturday nights, really late on. And it was,
yeah.
well, no, sorry, I beg your pardon. I think they used to do one in the afternoon because I used to watch after
They
school, and
did.
then they would do the unedited version that with
Yes.
the swearing and stuff like that
Yes.
later that night. Oh, but I used to love cartoons.
I'm gonna take off.
Nickelodeon.
I'm gonna take off Cow and Chicken and replace that with Space Ghost Coast to Coast because
That
I
works for
watched
me.
Cartoon Planet and Coast to Coast religiously as a kid because they were so.
There was Ed, and Eddie as well. Ed, and
That
Eddie.
was good shit. That was
I
good.
liked Ed, and Eddie. That was good fun.
Mm,
There was loads. There was
there were.
Fairly Odd Parents. I think was maybe a wee bit later. My brother watched Fairly Odd
Oh,
Parents.
I think that's Nickelodeon.
Oh, was it? All right. Oh,
I
sorry.
think I like that. I do think
It was good
that's
fun.
Nickelodeon.
It was good fun.
I do. Yeah, that was good fun. Yeah, I could do a whole 90s nostalgia cartoon episode about what was good. I guess all of May, because here's the thing, guys. I don't have any shows planned for May because at some point my wife is going to have a baby, and so I'm not planning anything at the moment. So I will, throughout May, I will dip in as and when I can. So maybe I'll be back next week, next Wednesday or
It's
Thursday.
exciting, isn't it? It's exciting on almost every level.
All right.
Will Luke be here? Will he not be
Will he
here?
not?
Will the baby be here? Will he not? Yeah,
Mm.
I'll be honest. This is proper tenterhook stuff for me.
I know, right? And then I was thinking, what I'll do is I'll do a new show when the baby arrives, or maybe I'll just start a whole new channel, and it'll be called Pop Culture and Baby.
Nice.
And it will be me
Nice.
doing pop culture stuff, waiting for her to cry, so that I then have to deal with it while I'm still
Well,
talking pop culture shit.
I know that we're wrapping up, but a very, very brief story about that.
Yeah,
I got for my birthday the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga for the PlayStation 5, and
nice.
I sat down to start playing it with my 2-year-old son.
Yep.
And we started chronologically. We didn't start from A New Hope. We started at episode 1.
Okay.
And my wife took a wonderful picture of me and him sat on the sofa, and I'm looking at him as the crawl starts up. It's just a shame it's the Phantom Menace, but do
Yes.
you know what? We'll take it, and it's our first little Star Wars moment, which
Oh,
is
I quite like that.
I know I'm a
That's
sap at
sweet.
heart. That bit of coal, it was just the coal for a heart was just a lie. I'm sorry, I shouldn't tell it.
Yeah, I do. There is a part of me that I do want to expose the kiddo to Star Wars, but I think
Just not
I'm
the Mandalorian.
hmm, yeah, but I think I will start with the original trilogy. I think I
I
will
think
try and wait as
I think
long as I can.
Well, interestingly, you say that. Like my brother's 8 years younger than me,
Mm,
and his kind of first proper exposure to Star Wars was the prequel trilogy. So he still thinks on it. He knows it's flawed. He understands it's flaws, but he's still very, very. He very much uh, holds it dear in his heart because of that emotional
the
connection to it,
emotional,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah. How old was he when it came out?
he would have been, when was it, 1999? So he would have been 5.
Oh, okay, right. I was 12.
I would have been 13.
Yeah,
13, 14, round about then.
yeah,
99, yeah,
yeah,
13,
yeah.
13. Yeah.
So I went in with I went in with oh, actually, there's a funny. I did a funny tweet. I always do funny tweets.
You
Damn it.
do, you do. I can verify that. If we're well, I suppose you can't really talk about Twitter and verification these days. That's a bit of a touchy subject, but I can certainly verify that you do make funny tweets.
Yes, poor Twitter. Where is it gone? Where is it gone? I will, because someone asked on Twitter, what was your like experience or your memory of experiencing episode one?
Yeah,
And I did mine in emojis, and I will show you briefly.
lovely.
Um, I did it on my. I started in a second Twitter channel handle for the podcast
Yep.
solely, so people, if you can either follow my normal one, because I Twitter is such a weird thing. I don't know if the writing community who follows me on my normal Twitter, if they actually give a shit about the podcast, where I'm just talking about movies and TV shows and occasionally books ish, or not. So we'll see. Okay, here's a share screen. Let's
So is this your reaction to seeing the movie for the first time when you're 12 years old?
yes,
Okay.
there we go. So my reaction in emojis.
Okay.
You got. Oh, I'm happy. Star Wars
Yep.
crawl, yay!
Yep.
Oh, some action, some
Yep.
young Obi-Wan, fun,
Yep.
fun, fun. Wait a minute. What's going on? Wait, midi chlorians? Oh, the
Yep.
fuck? A pod race? Pod race is still going on?
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
with Jar Jar?
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm so bored.
Yep.
And then leaving the cinema. What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
And that's the
quite
thing,
the
right?
vibe.
Like that's interesting. So see that original tweet from Malcolm Jackson, the poster there, it's done up the way that the new movies are done up.
Yeah.
That like all the old 1990s
Yep.
iconography of it is gone,
Yeah.
and it's just part of this prequel apologism that's going on to
Yeah.
try and revamp it and give it it wasn't all that bad, guys. Yeah, yes, it was.
Yes.
It was actually worse than that.
It was terrible, guys. So
It was.
stop it.
It was.
Stop it,
Just
Mandalorian.
stop it.
And
Stop
I
it,
guess
Mandalorian.
I
You're
guess
drunk. Go
Disney.
home.
No kidding. Disney, if you want to hire me
What
and
what a sign
Jonathan,
off that is. We are available, by the way, Disney. If you are, regardless of the last 2 hours, we are still available if you
yep.
if you've got any jobs going.
I've criticized Star Trek, but look, if you want someone who's going to be good and
Absolutely,
respectful,
absolutely.
there's two of us
Objective,
right
right?
here.
You
Two of
don't
us
want
right
you
here.
don't want yes men or women
No, you do not. Or thems.
or them.
Yeah, no, it's just, we're available. contact us. We'll do your shows for you.
We're cheap.
We're cheap. We'll cheap. We'll join your writers' room. We'll sit around the table, and
And we will say, absolutely, Ms. Kennedy, whatever you say.
yes, yes, Miss Kennedy. Yes, yes, Miss Kennedy. Yes.
How high? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are you watching Succession?
I'm not. No,
Okay.
I'm not a big fan.
Yeah,
Not a fan
fair
of it,
enough.
I'm afraid.
Fair enough.
We tried to watch it. We tried to watch it at a. We were late to it, right?
We were
late
too. Yeah.
to get to it, and then my wife and I sat down to watch the first episode, and it was fine. And I understand its appeal. I understand why it's so popular. It's just
Yeah.
it just doesn't do it for me. It's
Fair enough. For me, I'm not really enjoying this final season.
Yep.
I like seasons 1 and 2.
Yep.
It's got the House of Cards effect, where House of Cards season 1 and 2 are great in my opinion, and then everything afterwards is
yeah,
not living up, and I feel like that's the same. But I digress. We've digressed a lot from talking about Katy Perry.
We have.
Bad Disney movies.
Thankfully, because it was tough going.
Yes.
Not speaking to you and not being on the Luke Deckard show. Far from it. That's always a joy. Always a pleasure.
The Mandalorian was tough going.
Yes.
That's what was tough going. We'll see if we come back with more Mandalorian stuff. But Jonathan, you will absolutely be back at some point in the near future, I'm sure.
I'm always here.
There's
waiting at the phone, watching the phone to ring.
Waiting for the bat phone to ring, the Luke Deckard phone to ring. I mean, June has a lot. June is going to be such an annoying month because I do have shows planned for June, by the way, guys. But I got Crime Writers galore coming on. I have a Sherlock Holmes episode with Matthew Booth and other people. Bonnie McBird's coming on. David Stewart Davies. They're doing a Sherlock Holmes episode with me. Then I have Anna Mazzola and D.V. Bishop coming on for historical crime fiction app. Then I got
that'll be fantastic.
Oh, I got Mark Billingham. He's headlining the month. He's coming on to chat
Mark
writing.
Lovely. His new series sounds absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
I had the pleasure of interviewing him for the Friends of the North podcast, actually, which will be out. That'll be out the middle of May, I think the episode is. But he's great, a wonderful writer as well.
Yes, I love Mark. Mark's great. So I got those coming up, but also like June also has like Indiana Jones and Transformers, and the Flash.
And the Flash, yep.
And I'm gonna have a kid.
yeah. You want to get nuts? You're gonna get nuts. That's the thing about it. It's gonna be nuts in the Luke Deckard house.
And I'm like, there's no way. Like, I can't go to the cinema and see all these movies because I have this kid. So it's like, how am I gonna? I want to talk about these things, but I want to talk about it when it's hot.
Believe me, Luke, it will be the last thing on your mind.
it will be. It will be. But it probably won't be. But it will be.
No.
It'll be like the second thing on my mind. The first thing will be like kid stuff, and then how can I juggle kid stuff and go do Luke stuff?
You'll manage.
We will manage. Yes, but no. I want to. Well, one of those things. I feel like Indiana Jones is the thing you'll need to come and chat with me about.
A pleasure.
I think that's something that will need to happen.
A pleasure.
But yeah. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe if you haven't. Jonathan, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can get me on Instagram and Twitter, both at JD Whitelaw13, and I'm there. I'm there all week.
I'm there all week. And do you want to plug your books?
Well, actually, funnily enough, I managed to get my author copies of my brand new book, which is The Village Hall Vendetta, which is out on May 11th, and I'm delighted with it. Absolutely delighted. I did my unboxing video earlier on this week, and I even did my blooper reel. I decided to put the blooper reel up there, and people have been very, very kind, and you can see it on Twitter and Instagram and all the rest of it. So May 11th for that one. I'm in that lovely stage between it's all done, it's all ready to go, but it's not gone yet, and it's nerve-wracking and exciting. I'm excited.
Good. Go buy all of Jonathan's books, available at all good bookstores and bad bookstores,
and the bad ones as well.
And the bad ones.
You're here.
Oh yeah. Until next time, I might be here next week, might not, but I will. I'll probably keep people posted via shorts. I guess check shorts and things like that. But adios, folks. I need to get to the thing. There we go. Bye.